Chapter 560. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. After Princess Ningen left the courtyard, Xiaoheng completely pushed open the window that had a small crack that couldn't be seen if one didn't look carefully. He watched her disappear at the entrance of the palace and said softly, "Thank you, great aunt." After leaving Renshou Palace, Princess Ningen didn't immediately return to Bixia Hall. Instead, she went to the imperial study. "Ningen, you're here. Come and sit." The emperor put down the memorials in his hand. After many days of absence, a lot of work had piled up. Plus, the reward for Ningen and the murder case of Xianle House made him a bit overwhelmed. Princess Ningen came to the emperor's side. Eunuch Wei brought a small stool and placed it next to the emperor. Ningen sat down gracefully and looked at the emperor with a gentle gaze. "Am I disturbing you, imperial brother?" The emperor smiled and said, "No, take a seat. I said that you can come whenever you want. You will never disturb me." Princess Ningen recalled, "I remember when I was young, you often said the same thing. You're a prince and have a lot of homework. Every time I went to find you, you were studying." The emperor sighed. "I'm not favored by my father. If I don't work hard to leave an impression on him, he'll probably forget that I'm his son." Princess Ningen turned to look at him with reverence. "But in the end, it was you who stabilized the throne." "That's all thanks to my mother." Speaking of Empress Dowager Zhuang, the emperor felt a bit more emotional. "You probably don't know what happened to me and my mother in the years you weren't here." Although the emperor hated concubine Jing, he still cared about Ningen and didn't tell Ningen all about how she had instigated him and Empress Dowager Zhuang. But now that it was brought forward, he couldn't help but say it. "We were drugged and were at odds with Imperial Mother. We did too many things that let Imperial Mother down. Now that we think about it, Imperial Mother was the one who personally made us the emperor, yet we treated her like this. She must be very sad." Princess Ningen said softly, "Now that the misunderstanding has been cleared, you don't have to blame yourself for the past." The emperor said in shame, "I've always blamed my mother for controlling the court. If not for that, the country would have long fallen into the hands of concubine Jing and the remnants of the previous dynasty." Princess Ningen lowered her head. The emperor said sincerely, "Ningen, that woman is not fit to be your mother. You can only have Imperial Mother in your heart. Imperial Mother is the one who truly loves and protects you." Princess Ningen smiled. "Ningen knows. Ningen will be filial to Imperial Mother. Ningen will also be filial to Imperial Brother." The emperor smiled in relief. Princess Ningen's eyes flickered as she said, "By the way, brother, I just saw Lord Xiao in my mother's palace." The emperor thought for a moment. Lulang? There were not many men who could enter Empress Dowager Zhuang's bedroom. The only one surnamed Xiao was Xiao Lulang. Princess Ningen nodded. "Yes, Imperial Mother calls him Lulang. Lord Xiao seemed to be here for the Ministry of Justice's case, but I didn't hear what he said." The emperor remembered something and said, "There was indeed such a thing. He just came to the imperial study and said that the suspect in Xianle House had woken up." "Did she really wake up?" Princess Ningen asked. The emperor looked at Princess Ningen strangely. "This matter concerns the reputation of the imperial family, so I'm particularly concerned." "Did I overstep?" The emperor smiled. "How could that be? That's good." Princess Ningen smiled in relief. "I saw in the file that she was drugged with a drug called 7 days of intoxication. It is said that she will be in a coma for 7 days. The emperor smiled at the mention of this. "With the little magic doctor here, this is not difficult." Princess Ningen looked at the memorial on the table and asked in a relaxed tone, "Did she confess?" The emperor said, "They are still interrogating her." Princess Ningen touched the tip of her nose with a handkerchief. "Imperial brother, do you want to send someone to take a look?" The emperor thought for a moment. "Okay." The emperor sent Eunuch He this time. Eunuch He didn't expose himself in front of old concubine Jing, but the emperor didn't hide anything in front of Princess Ningen. Besides the hardships Princess Ning'an suffered in the frontier fortress, it increased his trust and affection for her. Yuniki came back quickly. Princess Ning'an was still in the imperial study. He reported, "Your Majesty, the suspect named Hua Xiao did wake up." Minister Xing personally interrogated her, but she refused to say anything. She didn't eat or drink. It seemed that she was going to go on a hunger strike. Does Xianlu House know that she is awake? It was Princess Ning'an who asked. She seemed to be particularly concerned about this case. But considering that she was also the emperor's sister and one of the suspects behind the case, her concern was reasonable. If Princess Xinyang were here, she would be more concerned about the progress of the case. As Yuniki thought so, he answered her question respectfully. "I know. Ever since the case of Immortal Music House became the talk of the town, it's hard to conceal the actions of the Ministry of Justice. There are always people trying to find out something from the Ministry of Justice. Xianlu House is no exception." A maid of Xianlu House came to visit the suspect with some snacks. Princess Ning'an asked, "What is her name?" Yuniki looked at Princess Ning'an in confusion, and then looked at the emperor. The emperor was happy to spoil Princess Ning'an, so Yuniki couldn't not give face to the princess. Yuniki said, "I think her name is Ling, or Linger. That's probably her name." Ling, or was Hua Xiao's personal maid. Princess Ning'an asked again, "What did they talk about?" Yuniki said, "I don't know." The maid begged to speak with Hua Xiao alone, and Minister Xing agreed. There was a solitary cell at the end of the prison of the Ministry of Justice. It was different from a normal cell. It was more like a solitary secret room. Not only was there an extra iron door, but it was also guarded by 2 strong yamen runners. There were burning braziers hanging on the walls on both sides of the corridor. The flickering flames shone on the expressionless faces of the yamen runners, making them look more dignified and cold. The door of the cell was locked. Everything seemed to be calm, but no one knew that the suspects had already caused a ruckus in the cell. Hua Xiao was tied to a chair, and her hands and feet were bound by ropes. Xiaoheng didn't lie. Hua Xiao did wake up, and Ling, Er's maid, came to Xianlu House. She gave Hua Xiao a bowl of last meal. Hua Xiao sneered. "Do you think that by casually bribing a maid to pretend to be the young lord to poison me, I will suspect the young lord? Naive." Xiaoheng didn't comment. He looked at her and said, "You believe in your young lord, but I don't know if your young lord has the same confidence in you." Hua Xiao laughed until her body trembled slightly. "Xiao Darren, Xiao Zhuangyuan, I don't know how to call you. Do you really think the young lord will be fooled? You underestimate the young lord too much. You are too arrogant. From the moment you used Bai Kuan's identity to write the confession, the young lord already knew that you were setting a trap for her. Because the young lord doesn't have a person named Bai Kuan. You can only fool the people of the capital, but as long as I don't say the identity of the young lord, you can't convict the young lord." Xiaoheng's expression didn't change in the slightest because of her words. "Bai Kuan is fake, but you, Hua Xiao, are real." Hua Xiao's smile disappeared and she said coldly, "So what? I won't confess. I won't betray the young lord." Xiaoheng asked, "Does it matter if you confess or not? If there can be a Bai Kuan in this world, there can be a second one." Hua Xiao frowned. "What do you mean?" Xiaoheng stopped, flicked his wide sleeves, pressed the mechanism at hand, and the stone door slowly opened. He took out a confession letter from his arms. "Come, this is Hua Xiao's confession letter." Hua Xiao's face changed. "You," Xiaoheng said. "Personally written." Hua Xiao trembled with anger. "You are trying to frame me again. Can't you be a little more creative, Xiao Darren? Is this all you have left?" "It doesn't matter if the method is old or not, as long as it is practical." Xiaoheng handed the confession letter to the yamen runner beside him. "Send it to the imperial palace to His Majesty, and say that Hua Xiao confessed." Hua Xiao scolded, "Despicable. If you have the ability, kill me. Otherwise, once His Majesty interrogates me, I will say that the confession letter was written by you. Then let's make a bet. You won't live until the moment His Majesty interrogates you." Xiaoheng raised his eyebrows and looked at her. His eyes gradually became cold. "The murderer is not me." The Yamen runner was Xing Shangshu's confidant. After receiving Xiao Heng's instructions, he immediately went to the imperial palace. The Yamen runner didn't have a token to enter the imperial palace. After reporting to the emperor, he could only be let in. The Yamen runner cupped his hands and said, "Please go and report to His Majesty. I am here to deliver the confession letter. The prisoner of Immortal Music House confessed." This case was very big. Xiao Heng and Xing Shangshu had entered the imperial palace several times. Even a fool could see that His Majesty attached great importance to the case. The imperial guards guarding the city didn't dare to neglect, and hurriedly sent someone to the imperial study to pass the message. The little eunuch in the imperial study also reported to Eunuch Wei. Eunuch Wei bowed and entered the imperial study reporting, "Your Majesty, the prisoner of Immortal Music House confessed." The emperor was very excited. "Really?" Eunuch Wei said. "Yes, the people of the Ministry of Justice sent the confession letter. It is at the gate of the imperial palace. They said that it was written by Hua Xiao." Princess Ning'an, "It can't be fake, right?" Eunuch Wei said. "It can't be fake." When Hua Xiao faked her death in Immortal Music House as a suspect, she went to the Ministry of Justice to make a statement. Her handwriting is there. Princess Ning'an squeezed her handkerchief tightly. The emperor was very excited. "What are you doing? Quickly announce it." Eunuch Wei was also very excited. He smiled and said, "Yes. This slave will go personally." Princess Ning'an's eyes moved slightly. She put down the half-drunk tea and said to the emperor, "Since Imperial Brother has something important to do, I will leave first." The emperor patted her hand and said dotingly, "You don't have to leave. Let's listen to the case together." Princess Ning'an's eyelashes trembled slightly. "This isn't very good." The emperor said, "What's not good about it? You are Zhen's sister, the princess of Zhao country. Since this case is related to the princess of Zhao country, you have the right to listen. If Xinyang was here, even if Zhen chased her away, she wouldn't leave. Xinyang was a person whose means and ambition were written on her face. If she wanted to interfere in the imperial court, she would interfere in the imperial court. Fortunately, her ambition didn't lie here. After interfering in the imperial court several times, she felt that it was meaningless, so she went home to take care of her son. There was a bit of distance from the imperial study to the gate of the imperial palace. Eunuch Wei's footsteps were not fast. If he took a small path, he would definitely be able to rob the confession letter before Eunuch Wei. Princess Ning'an used her handkerchief to wipe the thin sweat on her forehead. She looked at the gradually darkening sky and said, "At this time, Xiener should be looking for me. He's not a 3-year-old child. Does he still need to look for his mother at night?" The emperor didn't like that little remnant of the previous dynasty, but for Princess Ning'an's sake, he didn't make his dislike of Huang Fuxian too obvious. "Zhen will go with you to see Xiener in a moment. Sit in Zhen's imperial carriage. It'll be quick." On such a cold day, how could he be at ease letting Ning'an walk back alone? Princess Ning'an began to frequently switch her hands to drink from the quilt. "Are you this thirsty?" "A little." After drinking 3 full cups, Princess Ning'an said to the emperor, "Your Majesty, I want to." Before he could finish his sentence, Eunuch Wei brought him in with a face full of joy. "Your Majesty, she's here." The emperor said seriously, "Come in." Eunuch Wei led the bailiff into the room. The bailiff presented the confession letter with both hands. Eunuch Wei reached out to take it. "I'll do it." Princess Ning'an stood up and walked around the desk to take the letter from the bailiff. The capital in the first month was still cold. There were 2 braziers burning in the imperial study, one of which was not far from the emperor. As Princess Ning'an walked towards the emperor with the confession letter in hand, she suddenly tripped. Her beautiful face paled as she let out a cry and fell forward. The confession letter in her hand also flew out and flew right into the brazier. Between the confession letter and Princess Ning'an, the emperor would of course choose to protect Ning'an. How could he bear to let Ning'an fall and injure herself? The emperor stood up and caught Ning'an with his strong right arm. The moment Ning'an was caught, she let out a long sigh of relief. She leaned into the emperor's arms and panted slightly. She said guiltily, "I'm sorry, brother. I lost the confession letter." The emperor raised his eyebrows and smiled at her. Look! Ningen turned her head and was instantly struck by lightning. She saw the emperor's left hand accurately grab the confession letter. Emperor. Fortunately, I often play cards with Imperial Mother. I can grab cards with my left hand. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that you can't find online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1087295990. HTML Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bkuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 561. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more wonderful content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are all available here. Ningen, are you okay? Why is your face so pale? Did you bump into something? The emperor looked at Princess Ningen, who seemed to be nervous in his arms, and asked. Princess Ningen whispered, I'm fine. It was a close call. Fortunately, brother caught me in time. Otherwise, I would have been hurt. The emperor looked at the chair behind him and said with fear, Yes, your head almost hit the chair. The consequences would have been unimaginable. Princess Ningen vaguely hummed. The emperor helped her sit down on the stool. The confession had been in the emperor's hands, so it was impossible to let it have a second accident. After the emperor sat back in the chair, he glanced at Eunuch Wei. Eunuch Wei had served the emperor for many years. If he couldn't understand this look, he would have been a chief steward for many years. He hurriedly called 2 little eunuchs to carry the brazier away to ensure that even if the emperor fell 8 or 10 times, the confession would not fall into the brazier. The emperor couldn't wait to open the confession letter. This confession letter had a total of 10 pages, which was 9 pages more than Bai Kuan's confession letter. It recorded in detail Hua Xiao's birth, her first few years of wandering, and how she came to Immortal Music House. Hua Xiao was originally a young lady of an official's family. Her grandfather was the governor of South City. Because of a corruption case, he was sent to Zhao prison. Her grandfather was beheaded, and the rest of the family was sentenced to exile. Hua Xiao was only 2 years old. She was not deeply moved by the changes in her family. Every day, she could not eat enough and wear warm clothes. From time to time, she saw her family being beaten. It took a long time for her to understand what happened to her family. At that time, she was already 7 years old. She was a clever and beautiful little girl. She was bought by a brothel's madam. She planned to educate her for a few years and become the brothel's money tree. However, Hua Xiao's life in the brothel was not smooth. She was often bullied by older children. One cold night, she ran away. How long could a 7-year-old girl walk? In the middle of the night, she fainted in a dirty alley. When she came, she was lying in a carriage going somewhere. The carriage was very well decorated. It was clean and spacious, and it exuded a fragrance that was different from ordinary cosmetics. It was in this carriage that Hua Xiao met the most important person in her life. Her real name was not Hua Xiao, and her surname had been forcibly erased when she was sold to the brothel. She was called Lan in the brothel, and she hated this name. The gentlewoman in front of her was given a new name. The woman looked at the setting sun outside the window and said to her, "You will be called Hua Xiao." The obedient little girl nodded in a daze. The emperor was a little moved to tears. It was clearly a confession letter, so why did it have to be so touching? Was Hua Xiao really the daughter of the Guan family? That's right. Was she really sold to a brothel? That was not the case. As for Hua Xiao's background, Mo Qianxue only said, "It seems that her grandfather used to be an official somewhere. Later, he committed a crime and was confiscated." The latter part was all made up by the old chancellor. He was not afraid that the emperor would send people to investigate. Anyway, there were so many officials who were confiscated that a bundle of sacks couldn't hold them all. Hua Xiao came to the Immortal Music House 2 years earlier than Mo Qianxue. This was obvious to all, so there was no need to make it up. Of course, this was not the main point. The main point was the woman who adopted Hua Xiao. She trained Hua Xiao into a woman with both talent and beauty and excellent martial arts. She sent her to the Immortal Music House in the capital, and became her second confidant. The first confidant was Mo Qianxue. Mo Qianxue came to the woman's side later than Hua Xiao, and Mo Qianxue had been secretly trained by the woman. However, they had never met before entering the Immortal Music House. In the confession letter, Hua Xiao's analysis was that the woman was worried that they would grow up together and develop feelings for each other. They were not allowed to rely on and have feelings for people other than their master. This was actually the personal analysis of the old chancellor. This part was true. When the emperor saw this, a strong disgust rose from the bottom of his heart. Who was so perverted and vicious? He looked dignified as he finished reading the confession letter. The confession letter not only explained Hua Xiao's personal experience, but also explained the secret deployment of Immortal Music House in the capital these years. For example, Immortal Music House once came to make trouble in the name of the Empress Dowager. The emperor was even angrier. She actually used his mother? Very good. The behind-the-scenes owner of Immortal Music House was really bold. The second half of the confession letter focused on the case against Gu Jiao, which was similar to what Bai Kuan said. Mo Qianxue faked her death and got close to Gu Jiao. Hua Xiao conveyed the young master's order several times, asking Mo Qianxue to take action against Gu Jiao. The last time she went to find Mo Qianxue, she was knocked out and drugged by Mo Qianxue. When she woke up, she was in the prison of the Ministry of Justice. The confession letter also explained that Hua Xiao didn't intend to betray the young master, but the young master sent someone to poison her. She really fed her loyalty to the dogs. Since the young master did it, then don't blame her for doing it 15 times. In fact, you also know the young master. She is indeed the princess of the imperial family, and she does call your majesty brother. Her name is, the 9th page ended here. There was only one name on the 10th page. When the emperor saw the name, he suddenly gasped and looked at Ning'an in horror. Bixia Hall. Huang Fuxian was in a daze in front of the window again. Lianer helplessly walked into the room with the dry clothes, put them on the bed, and came to Huang Fuxian's side. A cold wind blew, and Lianer shivered. Lianer sighed. Young master, why are you sitting here in the cold wind again? Let me push you over to the fire to warm you up? I thought only the frontier was cold, but I didn't expect the capital to be so cold. As she spoke, she pushed Huang Fuxian's wheelchair to the fire basin. Huang Fuxian didn't object because he was frozen and couldn't speak. Lianer turned back and closed the window. Huang Fuxian sat by the fire basin to warm himself, while Lianer folded the clothes one by one and put them back in the wardrobe. She looked at the neat clothes in the wardrobe, then looked at her own clothes that were not folded properly. She cleared her throat and said, "Why did you fold them so well? Don't you have to wear them?" The rules in the palace were strict. Those who could be assigned to serve in Iridescent Cloud's hall were the most outstanding palace maids. Lianer had not received such strict training in the princess's residence at the frontier fortress, so the palace maids did not take her seriously. However, she was Princess Ning'an's confidant, so the palace maids didn't dare to say anything to her face. They could only fold the clothes she had folded again after she left. Really? Lianer's self-esteem was hurt again. She put her ugly clothes on top of a pile of clothes that were so neat that it was unreal, and went out sullenly. Not long after she went out, Huang Fuxian, who had recovered his body temperature and was no longer stiff, pushed his wheelchair to the window and propped it up with a pole. The window was not short, and he didn't have legs, so he couldn't stand, so this action was actually very difficult for him. When he reached the pole, he almost fell off the wheelchair. Fortunately, it was a close call. He felt the biting cold wind, and looked at the empty courtyard. His hands and feet were frozen stiff again. The sky was dark. He looked down and curled his lips in self-mockery. "Little brother." Little Mushroom appeared with his voice again. Huang Fuxian's eyelashes fluttered quickly, and his stiff body became even stiffer, but his expression didn't change at all. Little Jing Kong was small, so the windowsill was too high for him. Even if he used a stone as a cushion to climb up, it was still difficult for him. However, little Jing Kong was surprised to find that the stone had grown taller today. He climbed up the stone first, then easily flipped over the windowsill. Little brother. After he slid down, he turned around and looked at Huang Fuxian cutely. There was snow on his sleeves and pants, but there was no snow on his head or shoulders. Did you fall? Huang Fuxian asked coldly. Yes. Little Jing Kong nodded honestly. I only fell twice. What did he mean by only fell twice? 2 falls were not enough. Little Jing Kong hadn't fallen for a long time, but his instincts were still there. He hugged his little head in time so it didn't hurt. Huang Fuxian glanced at him indifferently, then reached out his hands expressionlessly. He supported the wheelchair with one hand and reached for the pole with the other. He had done this many times before, but now he was embarrassed in front of little Jing Kong. He successfully fell off the wheelchair. Little brother, are you okay? Little Jing Kong squatted down to help him up. Go away. Huang Fuxian said angrily. Little Jing Kong looked at him, thought seriously and said, You don't have to be embarrassed, I often fall too. You're a kid. It's natural for you to fall. You won't fall anymore when you grow up. But I'm a cripple. I'll fall my whole life. I'll be a good-for-nothing for the rest of my life. Huang Fuxian refused little Jing Kong's help. He used his hands, which were full of veins, to drag his injured body back to the wheelchair with difficulty. His leg started to hurt again. It was the place where his leg was amputated. Every once in a while his bone would pop out. Every time this happened, he had to endure the pain and grind his bone. Every time he had to grind his bone, he had to go to hell. He almost couldn't save himself several times. He didn't want to experience the pain of grinding his bone again, or he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to survive this time. But it was strange, wasn't it? Didn't he want to die long ago? What was he afraid of now? Little brother, what's wrong? Is it painful? Little Jing Kong looked at Huang Fuxian, who didn't look right, and asked with concern. No, Huang Fuxian said indifferently, grabbing a blanket to cover his injured leg. Little Jing Kong wasn't a person who liked to stare at other people's injured parts. In fact, no one taught him this on purpose. He just observed how Jiao Jiao did it, and did it accordingly. His gaze quickly turned to Huang Fuxian's face. Little brother, why is your face swollen? It was swollen last time, but it wasn't this serious. It seemed that he had been exposed to too much cold wind for the past 2 days, and the swollen part was frostbitten. Huang Fuxian looked at him calmly. Are you curious? Yes. Little Jing Kong nodded. Huang Fuxian curled his lips slightly and said playfully, My mother hit me. Little Jing Kong put his hands behind his back and leaned forward. He looked confused. Why did your mother hit you? Huang Fuxian sneered. Because I'm disabled. Little Jing Kong clenched his fists and said seriously, She can't hit him. Bad brother-in-law is a cripple, and Jiao Jiao didn't hit him. Huang Fuxian was speechless. Why is he a bad brother-in-law? Huang Fuxian asked. He's a bad brother-in-law. Little Jing Kong curled his lips and said. How bad? Huang Fuxian's eyes had a trace of true coldness. Very, very bad. Little Jing Kong said. Huang Fuxian knew very well how bad an adult could be to a child. Do you want me to help you teach him a lesson? He asked. That's not necessary. Little Jing Kong coughed softly. I can teach him a lesson myself. Little Mushroom's face was red, and his eyes were flickering. Obviously, he didn't really hate that bad brother-in-law. Huang Fuxian's mood became worse. He couldn't explain why. Little Nine fluttered his wings and flew to Huang Fuxian's pillow. After tearing down so many things, he found that his favorite was Huang Fuxian's pillow. Little Nine, don't tear down the house, Little Jing Kong said helplessly. Little Nine didn't listen and kept tearing down the pillow. Soon the cotton in Huang Fuxian's pillow was pecked out. Little Jing Kong sighed like an old man. It's all because of Little Eight of Brother Yan's bad influence. Huang Fuxian asked, Who's Brother Yan? Little Jing Kong said, He's my brother at home. Huang Fuxian frowned. You have other brothers? Little Jing Kong stretched out 2 little fingers. Yes, I have 2. Brother Yin and Brother Xiaoshan. Huang Fuxian asked with a dark face. Do you like them? Little Jing Kong nodded without hesitation. Yes, I like them. Huang Fuxian's face became even darker. You have so many brothers. Why do you still come to me? To take you out to play. Huang Fuxian turned his face away coldly. Little Jing Kong stretched out his chubby little hand and grabbed his fingers. The soft touch reminded him of a kitten's paw pad. Little brother, I'll take you to my house. Little Jing Kong had just finished speaking when a little eunuch's hurried footsteps and panic screams came from outside the door. Oh no! Something happened to Princess Ning'an. Digression, it's almost the end of the month. Please give me a wave of monthly votes. He bowed to express his gratitude. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found on the internet are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428226/1087288884. HTML Genius memorized the website address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Bkuj mobile reading website. mzhbqg.com. Chapter 562. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Little brother, something happened to your mother. Little Jing Kong looked at Huang Fuxian worriedly. Don't be sad. I'm not sad, Huang Fuxian said calmly. Little Jing Kong scratched his head in confusion. How could he not be sad? If something happened to Jiao Jiao, he would be very, very sad. Huang Fuxian slowly withdrew his hand from the little guy's grasp. Maybe they heard wrong. Nothing happened to my mother. You should go back first. Little Jing Kong. Oh, this time something did happen to Princess Ning'an. The incident happened in the imperial study. Once the news spread, the entire harem was alarmed. Empress Xiao, noble consort Zhuang, consort Xu, and the others all went to the imperial study, only to find that it was surrounded by imperial guards. No one could enter. I can't enter either? Empress Xiao asked coldly. The commander of the imperial guards was surnamed Fu. He cupped his fists in salute and said, We're searching for assassins inside. For the safety of the empress and the other imperial concubines, please wait here for a moment. How is His Majesty? Consort Xu asked anxiously. Commander Fu said. His Majesty retreated from the back door and returned to Pure Flower's palace. Noble consort Zhuang rolled her eyes. Why didn't you say so earlier? Did they come here to catch assassins? Empress Xiao and the others hurried to Pure Flower's palace, which was also surrounded by imperial guards. Fortunately, there were no assassins here, so no one stopped Empress Xiao. Noble consort Zhuang and consort Xu saw that she was going, so they also followed. Empress Xiao's position was stable. Her son was the crown prince, and her brother, Marquis Xianping, was fighting in the South Island. Noble consort Zhuang lost favor for a while because of Prince Ning, but she was backed by the Empress Dowager and the Zhuang family. As long as the Empress Dowager didn't punish her, and the Zhuang family didn't dislike her, she would always have a place in the harem. Consort Xu was the same. Her 2 nephews had just made great contributions at the frontier fortress, so she also rose in status. Who would dare to block her path? The 4th concubine to enter Pure Flower's palace was Consort Yu, Rui Wang's birth mother. Last year, Consort Rui Wang gave birth to Xiao Junju in the 10th month of the previous year, which could be considered a meritorious service for the imperial family. The other concubines were not so lucky. All of the palace servants in Pure Flower's palace knelt on the ground with their heads bowed. The entire palace hall was filled with a cold and solemn atmosphere. For some reason, Empress Xiao had an ominous feeling in her heart. When she passed through the Chuehua Gate, She suddenly stopped and looked at a little maid kneeling on the ground. She asked, "Did your majesty come back alone?" The palace maid said nervously, "Empress, Princess Ning'an came back with her." Empress Xiao frowned. Ever since Qin Chuyu was bullied by Huang Fuxian again and again, Empress Xiao didn't like Princess Ning'an. It was just that the emperor would come to comfort her from time to time, so she did not find fault with Ning'an. But in the end he was still unhappy. The emperor and Princess Ning'an came to the bedchamber in the imperial carriage. The palace maids and eunuchs didn't know the emperor's condition. They only heard that Princess Ning'an was injured and covered in blood. Empress Xiao didn't ask any more questions, and quickly walked towards the bedchamber. At the entrance of the bedchamber, the palace maids and eunuchs were kneeling on the ground and wiping the mottled bloodstains. Empress Xiao's heart tightened. As she stepped in, a strong smell of blood mixed with the smell of golden sore ointment assailed her nostrils. Empress Xiao's scalp went numb. "Your Majesty." Noble consort Zhuang passed by her and ran straight towards the dragon bed. Consort Shu and Consort Yu glanced at Empress Xiao and restrained themselves. No matter how worried they were about His Majesty's health, they didn't have the courage to run ahead of Empress Xiao like noble consort Zhuang. Princess Ning'an was sitting on a chair beside the bed. Her forehead was injured, her face was covered in blood, and her right arm was injured. An imperial physician was treating her injuries. 2 other imperial physicians were gathered in front of the dragon bed to check on the emperor's injuries. Eunuch Wei was anxiously wiping his tears beside the dragon bed. "Your Majesty, this concubine has come to see you." Noble consort Zhuang couldn't wait to come to the bed, only to find that the emperor's forehead was wrapped in thick gauze. His face was pale, and he seemed to have fallen into a coma. Noble consort Zhuang's beautiful face turned pale as she asked, "What's wrong with His Majesty?" After imperial physician Liang finished examining the emperor's right arm, he began to examine his left arm. Hearing this, he bowed to noble consort Zhuang and said, "His Majesty's head is injured. As for other injuries, we are carefully diagnosing." Empress Xiao stopped in the middle of the bedchamber and said with dignity, "Noble consort, come here. Don't disturb the imperial physicians who are treating His Majesty." "I don't want to. I want to protect His Majesty." "Someone come." At Empress Xiao's command, Eunuch Su, along with 2 powerful eunuchs, stepped forward and grabbed the shouting noble consort Zhuang. Empress Xiao's gaze swept over noble consort Zhuang, consort Shu, and consort Yu. "All of you wait outside." Eunuch Su came in front of the 3 imperial concubines and said, "3 imperial concubines, please." Noble consort Zhuang didn't want to go out, but she also knew that the situation was better than her. After Prince Ning's accident, her imperial mother no longer spoiled her. She had no capital to challenge Empress Xiao. Noble consort Zhuang angrily left the bedchamber. Since she had gone out, consort Shu and consort Yu also couldn't stay in the same place, and had to leave together. Princess Ning'an came to greet Empress Xiao. Empress Xiao looked at her injury and asked, "What did the imperial physicians say?" Princess Ning'an looked haggard. "It's just a superficial injury. It's not a big deal." Empress Xiao asked, "What happened in the imperial study? I heard that an assassin came." Princess Ning'an lowered her head and choked with sobs. "Yes, an assassin tried to assassinate imperial brother. I couldn't stop it and let imperial brother get injured." Empress Xiao sternly said, "You go back to Bixia Hall to recuperate. I will deal with the assassin." Princess Ning'an reluctantly looked back at the unconscious emperor. She also glanced at Eunuch Wei. Eunuch Wei quickly lowered his eyes. Princess Ning'an turned her face and bowed to Empress Xiao. "Yes." After she left, Empress Xiao called Eunuch Wei over and asked with a dignified look, "What's the matter with the assassin? Why would an assassin sneak into the imperial study? Doesn't His Majesty have an imperial expert around him?" Eunuch Wei looked embarrassed. "There is, but..." Empress Xiao frowned. "But what?" Eunuch Wei said with a pained heart. "It just happened too quickly. No one expected this to happen. If Princess Ning'an had not stepped forward bravely and blocked the blade for His Majesty, I'm afraid His Majesty would have been dead by now." Seeing that the first move failed, the assassin grabbed the inkstone on the table and smashed it on His Majesty's head. Empress Xiao's eyes were cold. Who is the assassin? Eunuch Wei lowered his eyes and said, a Yamen runner from the Ministry of Justice. After interrogating Eunuch Wei, Empress Xiao finally figured out the ins and outs of the emperor's assassination. It turned out that His Majesty had recently been investigating a case related to the royal family. Today, the prisoner in the prison of the Ministry of Justice pleaded guilty. The Yamen runner named Sun Ping came to deliver the prisoner's confession to His Majesty. Minister Xing was the emperor's trusted aide. Naturally, the emperor would not suspect the person he sent. Sun Ping took advantage of the fact that the emperor was flipping through the confession letter to suddenly pull out the soft knife hidden in his belt and stab towards the emperor. Eunuch Wei was at the door. He was far away and didn't see what Sun Ping was doing. Princess Ning'an reacted first. She rushed over and blocked the knife. Her right arm was seriously injured. When she fell down, she accidentally hit her forehead on the stool. When Eunuch Wei found something wrong and called someone to protect His Majesty, it was too late. Sun Ping was too close to His Majesty. His Majesty was hit by the inkstone Sun Ping grabbed. When Sun Ping wanted to hit Princess Ning'an a second time, Princess Ning'an rushed over, pulled out the remaining knife in her right arm, and stabbed Sun Ping's heart. At that time, there were only His Majesty, Princess Ning'an, and Eunuch Wei in the imperial study. There was no fourth witness. Empress Xiao asked the guards at the city gate and confirmed that Sun Ping did enter the palace in the name of delivering the confession. Of course, Empress Xiao also sent Eunuch Su to the Ministry of Justice. The news he received was consistent with what Eunuch Wei said. Sun Ping was here to deliver the confession. However, the Ministry of Justice didn't expect Sun Ping to assassinate His Majesty. Sun Ping and Sun Jian were cousins. One was in his early 20s, and the other was 23. The two of them worked under Minister Xing. Their positions weren't high, but they were always around Minister Xing. Minister Xing thought highly of them. When they heard that Sun Ping had done such a rebellious thing, everyone's first reaction was disbelief. If it was Sun Jian who did it, they would think twice. Sun Jian was more cunning than Sun Ping. Occasionally, he would bully others. However, Sun Ping had always been honest. Eunuch Su, where is Sun Ping? Minister Xing asked. He's already dead. Eunuch Su said coldly. Minister Xing sucked in a breath of cold air. Eunuch Su asked in an arrogant tone. Who let Sun Ping enter the palace? Xiao Heng took a step forward. Minister Xing pulled him back and said to Eunuch Su, it was me. Eunuch Su raised his chin and harumphed coldly. Then Minister Xing, please follow me into the palace. Also, this matter concerns His Majesty. This assassination case will be handed over to the Supreme Court, and the censorate will handle it. Minister Xing said politely, Eunuch Su, please wait for a moment. Allow me to tidy my attire, so as to avoid being disrespectful in front of the palace. Amen. Eunuch Su replied indifferently. Then he led the palace servants out of Minister Xing's room. Minister Xing lowered his voice and said to Xiao Heng, I don't believe that Sun Ping would assassinate His Majesty. Lulang, investigate the truth. Xiao Heng nodded solemnly. As soon as Minister Xing left, Xiao Heng wrote a letter to Empress Xiao. The letter stated that Sun Ping was sent by him, and the confession was obtained by him. It had nothing to do with Minister Xing. There was something else going on with Sun Ping. However, he hesitated and didn't send the letter out in the end. Minister Xing was brought to a side hall of Pure Flowers Palace. Empress Xiao sat on the main seat and looked coldly at Minister Xing, who was kneeling on the ground. She said, Minister Xing, do you have anything to say now? Were you the one who sent Sun Ping? Minister Xing said, Empress, Sun Ping was indeed sent by this humble subject. However, this humble subject doesn't believe that he would assassinate His Majesty. Empress Xiao said, Do you not believe me, or do you want to distance yourself from this matter? Minister Xing said, Sun Ping was this humble subject's bailiff. He died for no reason. This humble subject should do his best to investigate the truth and seek justice for him. Why would this humble subject be in a hurry to distance myself from this matter? Empress Xiao narrowed her eyes. So you're saying that this empress is wrongly accusing you? Minister Xing said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. This humble subject doesn't dare. Empress Xiao said indifferently. This empress also wants to believe you, but the evidence is conclusive. Minister Xing looked up at her. May I ask what the empress is referring to as evidence? Empress Xiao said seriously. Witnesses and material evidence. We have both. Eunuch Su walked over with a tray. On the tray was a piece of brocade cloth. On the brocade cloth, there was a bloody soft knife and a blood-stained ink slab. These are Sun Ping's murder weapons. Eunuch Su told the empress the whole story of the emperor's assassination. Princess Ning and Eunuch Wei said the same thing. Princess Ning An's biggest backer was the emperor. Everyone in the imperial court was debating whether to confer her the title of Princess Royal or not. The emperor wanted her to be conferred the title. The emperor's death was a great loss to her. Therefore, from this perspective, she had no motive to commit the crime. As for Eunuch Wei, he had been serving the emperor for a long time. Who would doubt his loyalty? At this point, Minister Xing realized how weak his inference was in front of these two powerful witnesses. Empress Xiao asked, "What else do you have to say?" Minister Xing said, "This humble subject has nothing to say." Empress Xiao said coldly, "Guards, escort Minister Xing to the Supreme Court." Minister Xing knelt on the ground with his back straight. He slowly took off his official hat and carefully handed it to the palace guards who came to detain him. Empress Xiao called the officials of the Supreme Court over and took them to the crime scene to collect evidence. The palace guards who had been interrogated before were also interrogated one by one. Empress Xiao was busy until late at night. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore and fell asleep on the back of the chair in the side chamber. It was late at night. The candlelight in the bedchamber flickered. Eunuch Wei knelt on the foot of the dragon bed, silently wiping his tears. A ghost-like beautiful figure quietly entered the room. The gorgeous train of her dress swept across the smooth floor. Eunuch Wei was crying when he suddenly saw a huge shadow on the dragon bed. He was so scared that he shivered. When he was about to turn around, a white hand gently pressed on his shoulder. Eunuch Wei's whole body tensed up. "Eunuch Wei, are you cold?" The person behind him asked gently. Eunuch Wei swallowed and suppressed the fear in his heart. He whispered, "Princess, I'm not cold." "If you're not cold, then why are you shivering?" she asked. Eunuch Wei forced himself to stop shivering. "Is my royal brother awake?" She lifted the bright yellow curtain and hung it with a hook. Then she sat down on the edge of the bed. Eunuch Wei looked at her uneasily and said, "Not yet." She raised her hand and gently touched the emperor's cheek. "My royal brother has suffered a lot." Eunuch Wei lowered his head and didn't say anything. "Eunuch Wei, who do you think caused my royal brother to be like this?" Sun Ping. Sun Ping. She was stunned and then laughed. She laughed so hard that she leaned forward and back. The sinister laughter echoed in the bedchamber. Eunuch Wei shuddered. He quietly turned his head to look at the palace guards kneeling in the bedchamber, and found that they all fell asleep on the ground without exception. Eunuch Wei shuddered even more. She laughed enough and wiped the tears with her fingertips. "Eunuch Wei, isn't it me? Didn't I kill myself to prove my innocence? But my royal brother didn't believe me, so I accidentally harmed my royal brother?" Eunuch Wei didn't know how to respond. If he said the wrong thing, he was afraid that she would go crazy. If he said the right thing, he was afraid that she would go crazy. She said, "Eunuch Wei, you really are a person. I let you work for me and you really betrayed my royal brother. Are all of you rootless people so cowardly?" At the end of her sentence, she gritted her teeth and kicked Eunuch Wei to the ground. Eunuch Wei wasn't as old as Eunuch Qin, but he wasn't young either. This fall almost broke all the bones in his body. Was this still the princess he knew? She was clearly a violent madwoman. Whoever was with her really had 8 lifetimes of bad luck. She gave a mocking laugh. "Royal brother, open your eyes and look. This is the eunuch you trust. Their bodies are broken and their hearts are broken. They have no loyalty to speak of. Royal brother, I originally didn't plan on making a move against you so quickly, but why don't you believe me? Haven't you always trusted me the most? Is it because I didn't drug you that you are not as loyal to me as you are to Mu Fei? But I gave it to you now." Princess Ning'an said as she took out a small porcelain bottle from her chest. Eunuch Wei's expression suddenly changed. He wanted to stop her, but she could even beat the dragon shadow guard. If he rushed over, wouldn't he be sending himself to death? He didn't realize before that this princess hid so deeply. Ah! Princess Ningen saw Eunuch Wei's struggle. She didn't care about the suspicion and disgust of an aunt. She only found it funny. She laughed a few more times before turning to look at the emperor on the dragon bed. Don't worry, it's not a drug to control your mind. You've taken too much of that drug. If you take more, you'll become a fool. How could I bear to? I still hope that imperial brother will be able to witness everything I do with a clear mind. Princess Ningen pried open the emperor's mouth and poured the medicine in. Not long after, the emperor's eyelids began to tremble slightly. This was a sign that his consciousness was recovering. But although his consciousness had recovered, his body was even more unable to move. He would know everything that Ningen had done. In a state of incomparable clarity, he would bear all the betrayal that Ningen had brought him. His heart felt like it was being cut by a knife, his lungs burned like fire, but there was nothing he could do. Digression. I regret it, I really regret it. I regret it as much as the emperor when he woke up. This chapter of mine is like sitting on a rocket, the progress is so fast. A few lines of dialogue have brought the green tea tricks over. In fact, if I started writing, it wouldn't be too much to write 20,000 words. Veteran readers are very clear on this point. I am determined to be a good writer with a conscience, who doesn't abuse the reader, who doesn't drag the plot. Do you know how long I regretted it after the Empress Dowager recovered her memories? 1 month. An entire month. Isn't it good if I drag it out for 300,000 words? Isn't it beautiful if I add more words? I also need money to eat. I wrote in my notebook with a bold highlighter. If I dare to progress so fast, I will. That word can't be said. But as many times as old Tang is a donkey, I will be a donkey. Whether you admit it or not, the progress of this novel is so fast that every time I release a new chapter, I feel distressed. But even so, there are still people who jump out and scold me for dragging it out. I feel a bit sullen, wondering if I should just accuse them of dragging it out? That way, I won't be scolded for nothing. But after thinking about it, those people are in the minority. It's not worth it to be angry with them. Okay, I'm going to sleep. If you want to live without worries, you have to occasionally complain. Today's complaints are over, good night. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964220870745 HTML Genius remembers this site's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website, zhhbqg.com. Chapter 563. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Little Jing Kong sat in Lu Quan's carriage and returned to Baishui Alley at night. The secret guard on the roof of the carriage who was responsible for protecting him also flew into the house. Jiao Jiao, Jiao Jiao. The first thing little Jing Kong did when he entered the house was to shout Jiao Jiao, regardless of whether Gu Jiao was there or not. Fortunately, Gu Jiao was really at home today. She came to treat Master Zhao next door. In the evening, Master Zhao's eldest grandson suddenly ran to the clinic and said that Master Zhao fell and couldn't get up. Gu Jiao quickly put down her work and rushed back. Uncle Zhao's fall was an accident. His right wrist and right ankle were sprained, and the pain was unbearable, so he couldn't get up. When Gu Jiao checked Uncle Zhao's injuries, she also checked other things and found that Uncle Zhao had high blood pressure. It wasn't serious, so Master Zhao didn't feel much. But if he really felt unbearable discomfort, the situation would be very serious. After Gu Jiao treated Master Zhao's injuries, She prescribed some medicine to lower his blood pressure. When she returned to the east room, she heard little Jing Kong's voice. Gu Jiao put down the medicine box and walked out. Jiao Jiao. Little Jing Kong threw himself into Gu Jiao's arms. The 5-year-old boy could no longer hug Gu Jiao's thigh when he first came here. Now he could barely reach Gu Jiao's waist when he stood on his tiptoes. Gu Jiao would usually bend down and let little Jing Kong throw himself into her arms. When she did this action, she did not have the same motherly gentleness as Yao Shi. In truth, she was a little stiff, and her expression was a little too calm. But in the instant that she wrapped her arms around little Jing Kong, the sense of security that came from being blocked behind her was something that no hug could compare to. Little Jing Kong breathed in Gu Jiao's scent with peace of mind. He closed his eyes and calmed down. Jiao Jiao. Gu Jiao rubbed his little head. You went to the palace? Gu Jiao had heard about it from Yao Shi. Okay. Little Jing Kong nodded. I'm going to visit great-aunt and my brother. Gu Jiao took his little hand and walked to the backyard. How are grand-aunt and little brother? Little Jing Kong said happily. Good, it's all good. No, that's not right. Little brother isn't very well. What's wrong? Gu Jiao asked. Little Jing Kong sighed. Something seems to have happened to his mother. I don't know what happened. I'm worried about him. Something happened to Princess Ning'an? Gu Jiao paused. Then I'll ask around for you. Okay. The two came to the well, and Gu Jiao fetched a bucket of water for him to wash his hands. Fortunately, little Jing Kong was a child who could withstand the cold, and was not delicate at all. If it were Qin Chuyu, he would have been screaming from the cold. Gu Jiao felt that the well water in winter was really warm, and she could take a bath directly. But her family didn't let her. After washing his hands, little Jing Kong went to practice the set of boxing that Gu Chongqing taught him. He practiced it every day, at least once, at most 3 or 4 times, without stopping. Gu Jiao felt that once a day was enough to strengthen his body. There was no need to work so hard. Little Jing Kong didn't just want to strengthen his body. He wanted to protect Jiao Jiao and his chickens. There was no harm in practicing more boxing, so Gu Jiao let him be. At night, Gu Jiao learned that the emperor was assassinated and was in a coma. In the study of the old chancellor next door, Gu Jiao Xiaoheng, and the old chancellor sat on a cushion beside a short table. I knew she would do it, but I didn't expect her to be so ruthless. The old chancellor sighed. They publicized the case of Immortal Music House, forcing the emperor to investigate the case and give the people an explanation. Then they got Hua Xiao's confession. Their original intention was to force her to do it. After all, a person would only reveal their flaws when she did it. The old chancellor said thoughtfully, I thought she would use the trick of injuring herself to make the emperor soften. Or she would destroy the confession before the emperor saw it, and then send someone to assassinate Hua Xiao. But why did she stab the emperor? She smashed it. Xiaoheng corrected. It's all the same. The old chancellor cleared his throat. The emperor is so pitiful. Xiaoheng, your expression clearly doesn't show that. Gu Jiao was thirsty and went to drink tea. Xiaoheng took her cold tea without a trace and gave her the cup of hot tea that he hadn't touched. His eyes didn't fall on Gu Jiao, and his expression was very indifferent, as if it was just a casual movement. He said, the emperor should have seen the confession and chose not to believe her. He might even want to detain her, so she took the risk to attack the emperor. There are 2 doubts. First, why didn't the emperor believe her? Second, there was a dragon shadow guard beside the emperor. How did she get past the dragon shadow guard and attack the emperor? Empress Xiao hadn't seen the power of the dragon shadow guard, so she couldn't imagine how fast they were. No one could easily hurt the emperor under the eyes of the dragon shadow guard. Even if the emperor was hurt, it was impossible to escape unscathed. I'm very confused about the first point, Xiaoheng said. Gu Jiao nodded. So was she. The emperor doted on Princess Ning, and so much that it didn't seem right to suspect her based on a confession. Unless something else happened in the imperial study that shattered the emperor's familial filter for Princess Ning'an. The old chancellor stroked his white beard and said, back then, old concubine Jing fell from the horse too quickly. I always felt that there was something between her and the emperor that we overlooked. Xiaoheng said. As for the second doubt, I have a guess in my heart. The old chancellor looked at him. Say it. Xiaoheng analyzed. It's impossible for her to get past the Dragon Shadow Guard and attack the emperor. She either lured the Dragon Shadow Guard away, or defeated the Dragon Shadow Guard. She didn't know that Sun Ping would come to deliver the letter, so it's unlikely that the Dragon Shadow Guard was lured away in advance. So she can defeat the Dragon Shadow Guard? The old chancellor looked at Gu Jiao. Jiao, does she know martial arts? Gu Jiao took a sip of the hot tea that her husband handed over. Her stomach felt warm. She shook her head. I didn't notice. The old chancellor frowned. Could it be that she's an expert like old concubine Jing, who used medicine to change her pulse and hid the fact that she knows martial arts? Gu Jiao said. If that's the case, her body will show signs of weakness. She doesn't have this kind of situation. Xiaoheng said. You don't have to know martial arts to deal with the Dragon Shadow Guard. Everything in the world reinforces and restrains each other. The Dragon Shadow Guard came from the Yin Kingdom. I think that the Yin Kingdom must have a way to deal with the Dragon Shadow Guard. The few of them coincidentally thought of the power behind the collusion with Immortal Music House. Could it be that they were really afraid of a young lord of Immortal Music House? With Empress Dowager Zhuang's ability, was it difficult to issue an edict to depose the princess? The reason why she had to lower herself to play mind games was largely to test the power of the Yin Kingdom hidden in the dark. Xiaoheng paused and said, Hua Xiao can't continue to stay in the Ministry of Justice. The emperor couldn't tell whether the confession letter was real or fake, but the young master of Immortal Music House could see the flaw at a glance. After all, what was written in the confession letter wasn't Hua Xiao's real experience at all. The narrative tone was also wrong. The only similarity was the handwriting. However, in the case that the first 2 points were fake, it wasn't difficult to guess that the handwriting was also fake. The young master of Immortal Music House understood that Hua Xiao hadn't betrayed her so far. However, things were different now. She had made such a big move, and the risk she had to take was much greater than before. Hua Xiao's existence was always a threat to her. Xiaoheng didn't care about Hua Xiao's life, but Hua Xiao was always one of the important witnesses to bring down the young master of Immortal Music House. After several people's discussion, Hua Xiao was secretly sent to the medical center that night, and became neighbors with Mo Qianxue. Hua Xiao, Mo Qianxue. Gu Jiao planned to transfer Secret Guard A to watch Hua Xiao, but Mo Qianxue snorted and said, No need to be so troublesome. I can keep an eye on her. Use more bone-softening powder. Hua Xiao. After settling Hua Xiao, they assessed the risk of the other related people. From the youngest to the oldest, it was Empress Xiao the Emperor, and Minister Xing. Empress Xiao was investigating this case. The less she knew, the safer she would be. As long as her direction was wrong, it was what Princess Ning'an wanted. Once she realized who the real murderer was, the situation would become dangerous. This was also why Xiaoheng decided not to tell her the inside story for the time being. The emperor was now in the hands of Princess Ning'an, and his personal safety was difficult to guarantee. But if he died at this time, Ning'an's interests would stop here. Before squeezing the emperor's value, Ning'an would not touch him. She just didn't know how long she could squeeze this value out of him. The first one to be executed might be Minister Xing. The next day, the Supreme Court began to investigate Sun Ping's assassination of the emperor. Minister Xing firmly claimed that Sun Ping was wronged and hoped that the Supreme Court could give Sun Ping justice. Minister Xing was, after all, a second-rank official. Unless His Majesty personally issued a decree to torture him, the Supreme Court really couldn't torture him. But it was not a good idea to waste time like this. Just when the Supreme Court could not find conclusive evidence for the case, a Yamen runner from the Ministry of Justice came to the Supreme Court and claimed that a suspect detained by the Ministry of Justice had evidence of the case. The Supreme Court hurriedly called the person to the interrogation room. Minister Xing was also there. Minister Xing never expected that the person who came would be Assistant Minister Li. Assistant Minister Li was set up because he was investigating the case of Xianlu House and took a life. There was not enough evidence to reverse the case for him, so he was temporarily detained in the Ministry of Justice. Minister Xing had a plan in mind. When Xianlu House was overthrown, he would release Assistant Minister Li. Two lords. Assistant Minister Li saluted the two of them. The Minister of the Supreme Court said, "No need to be so polite. I heard that Assistant Minister Li has clues of the case." "That's right." Assistant Minister Li looked straight at the ground in front of him and said, "Actually, this official knows who the mastermind behind this is." "Oh. Sun Ping is only a sharp blade. The real murderer is someone else." "He is." Assistant Minister Li suddenly paused. Minister Xing's heart surged with an ominous premonition. Assistant Minister Li steeled his heart and said, "Lord Xing, I'm sorry. I've let down your years of cultivation, but this official really can't hide it for you anymore." Minister Xing looked at him in disbelief. "Assistant Minister Li." Assistant Minister Li did not look at him. He only took out a few letters and handed them to the Minister of the Supreme Court. "These are the evidence of Lord Xing and Sun Ping's private dealings. Sun Ping's cousin, Sun Jian, used to be a street thug. Once Lord Xing met a few robbers on a trip. Sun Jian had a grudge against them, so he beat them up. Unexpectedly, this incident caught Lord Xing's eye. Lord Xing brought the two brothers into the Ministry of Justice to become yamen runners. Sun Ping can be considered honest, but Sun Jian's bad habits did not change. Lord Xing had helped him pay off his gambling debts several times. These are all Sun Jian's promissory notes and letters of remorse. Not long ago, Lord Xing gave Sun Ping a large sum of silver and asked Sun Ping to do something important for him. This official accidentally overheard it outside the watchroom. Lord Xing told him that this matter was of great importance and that he must keep his mouth shut about Sun Jian. This official also heard Sun Ping say that if I don't come back, please take care of my cousin for me. Although my cousin likes to gamble, he has been changing and has been changing for a long time. The Minister of the Supreme Court asked, "Why didn't you say so earlier?" Assistant Minister Li said bitterly, "We are the Ministry of Justice and often have to investigate some confidential cases. I thought that Sun Ping had been sent out to investigate a major case that could lead to his death. That is not something I should ask, so I didn't think too much about it. It was only this morning that I heard the yamen runners outside the prison say that His Majesty was assassinated, and that the murderer was Sun Ping that I thought of this matter. The most hurtful thing was never the enemy's sword or spear, but the cold arrows of one's comrades." "Why did you do this?" "Lord, is what I said not true?" It was true, but it was not the entire truth. Minister Xing had indeed asked Sun Ping to do something for him and gave him a few banknotes, but he was only taking care of the family of a yamen runner who had passed away. That yamen runner had been killed by the murderer while investigating a murder case. Minister Xing had always felt guilty, feeling that he had not protected his subordinate well. Who would have thought that something like this would happen before Sun Ping could give out the banknotes? As expected, when one was unlucky, even water would be stuck between one's teeth. The Minister of the Supreme Court looked at Minister Xing with a complicated expression and said to Assistant Minister Li, "So the mastermind who ordered Sun Ping to assassinate His Majesty was Minister Xing?" Assistant Minister Li said, "The person who ordered Sun Ping was Minister Xing, but the mastermind behind the assassination of His Majesty was not him. Minister Xing was only acting on behalf of someone else." With these words, not only was Minister Xing stunned, even the Minister of the Supreme Court was stunned. The Minister of the Supreme Court said seriously, "Is there something else? Who is the mastermind behind the scenes?" Assistant Minister Li closed his eyes with a pained expression, as if he had made a huge decision. He said, "It was the Empress Dowager." Minister Xing punched Assistant Minister Li to the ground. Assistant Minister Li handed over a portion of the letters that Empress Dowager Zhuang had written to Minister Xing. They were not personally written by Empress Dowager Zhuang, but this was easy to understand. Afraid of leaving something behind, how could such a clever person like the Empress Dowager have her own handwriting? She did not even know how to use the handwriting of the people around her. However, if each letter was burned with candlelight, Empress Dowager Zhuang's phoenix seal would appear on the paper. The contents of the letters confirmed that Minister Xing had been secretly plotting between the Emperor and Empress Dowager Zhuang over the years. The last letter was from 7 days ago. Empress Dowager Zhuang said that she had endured the Emperor for a long time. The Emperor had been at odds with her for many years and found that he could not win against her by force, so he began to use filial piety to confuse her. She thought that the Emperor had truly buried the hatchet with her, and even gave away the power of court that she had controlled for many years for the Emperor. Who would have thought that the Emperor had been secretly plotting to get rid of her? The Emperor was heartless, so he could not blame her for being unjust. She wanted the Emperor's life. All of this was made up with a nose and eyes. If Minister Xing did not know that this was a trap set for him, he would have believed it himself. These letters were all written by Empress Dowager Zhuang, and there was no reply from Minister Xing. This was understandable. Minister Xing's reply must be in Empress Dowager Zhuang's hands. If it could not be found in Empress Dowager Zhuang's hands, there was an explanation. With Empress Dowager Zhuang's shrewdness, she would not leave any evidence. She must have burned it after reading it. Then why should I keep the evidence? Am I not afraid that it will be exposed? Minister Xing questioned Assistant Minister Li. Assistant Minister Li covered his swollen face and replied calmly, "That is because you understand that being the Empress Dowager's puppet is like asking a tiger for its skin. If one day the Empress Dowager kills the donkey after it has outlived its usefulness, at least you still have a trump card to threaten the Empress Dowager in order to protect yourself." This reason was impeccable. Minister Xing should be angry, but his first reaction was to give a thumbs up in his heart. It was a perfect crime. Empress Dowager Zhuang was once the most powerful woman in Zhao country. Before the previous emperor passed away, he had appointed her as regent. It was the previous emperor who had rightfully handed over the power to her. So what if she held court behind the curtain? As long as she didn't rebel, no one could do anything to her. But now that the regicide had happened, everything was different. Empress Xiao was usually very afraid of Empress Dowager Zhuang. But even a rabbit would bite when cornered. Empress Dowager Zhuang had committed regicide. How could she continue to swallow her anger? At worst I'll die. If I die, my brother will avenge me when he comes back. Commander Fu of the Imperial Guards was a confidant of Marquis Xianping. Empress Xiao took the token left by Marquis Xianping to her, and ordered Commander Fu to lead the troops to put Empress Dowager Zhuang under house arrest in Rinshou Palace. Empress Xiao had no right to punish Empress Dowager Zhuang. She could only wait for the emperor to wake up, and then make a decision. Therefore, after putting Empress Dowager Zhuang under house arrest, Empress Xiao returned to Qiankuan Palace to deal with official business. After the emperor was assassinated, everyone in the imperial palace was in a state of panic. In the past, when it was time to eat, the gates of each palace would be bustling with activity. But today it was especially solemn. The palace servants came out of the imperial kitchen with food boxes. When they saw each other, they didn't greet each other with laughter. They silently saluted when they should and treated those who didn't need to. Inside Pure Flower's palace, a young eunuch also brought in the emperor's food. "You can all withdraw. I'll do it." Eunuch Wei instructed the palace servants. Yes. Everyone left in a single file. Eunuch Wei looked around and confirmed that there was no third person in the bedchamber. Then he came to the side of the emperor's bed and softly called out, "Your Majesty, Your Majesty." The emperor didn't respond. "Your Majesty, this servant has offended you." Eunuch Wei took out a raw fish bladder. He had soaked this fish bladder with medicine to get rid of the fishy smell. He cut a small hole in the fish bladder and forced the emperor's mouth open. Then he used his finger to shove the fish bladder in. Just as he finished doing this, an indifferent voice came from behind him. "Eunuch Wei, what are you doing?" Eunuch Wei trembled and almost stabbed the fish bladder into the emperor's throat. He forced himself to calm down, and turned around with a sigh of relief. "You scared me to death." So it was the princess. I thought the empress had come. Princess Ning'an walked forward and looked at him suspiciously. "Why are you feeling guilty when the empress is here?" Eunuch Wei used the action of tidying the emperor's bedding to discreetly stuff the fish bladder into the emperor's pants. Eunuch Wei's eyes flashed and he said embarrassedly, "This servant is now yours." It's inevitable that I feel a bit guilty when I see the Empress. Princess Ningen smiled coldly. That's true. If the Empress finds out that you betrayed His Majesty, this princess won't be able to keep your life. So you have to be careful. Don't let this princess not take your life, but the Empress will. Eunuch Wei agreed fawningly. Yes, yes. How is His Majesty? Princess Ningen asked haughtily. Eunuch Wei thought to himself, you really have shed all pretenses. You don't even bother to pretend. Where is the affection between siblings? Even Princess Xinyang treats His Majesty better than you. Eunuch Wei replied. He still seems to be unconscious. Princess Ningen took out a bottle of medicine from her wide sleeve. This servant will do it. Eunuch Wei said politely. You? Princess Ningen looked at him suspiciously. Eunuch Wei said, His Majesty hasn't washed in 2 days and is a bit disheveled. The princess is precious. It's better for this servant to do it. You can watch from the side. If this servant doesn't feed him properly, you can remind this servant. Princess Ningen looked at the slovenly emperor and pursed her lips. She handed the bottle to Eunuch Wei. Okay, you do it. Eunuch Wei took it and pulled out the cork. He carefully and nervously reached out to grab the emperor's chin. His hand couldn't help but tremble slightly. It was obvious that he was very nervous. However, this nervousness wouldn't arouse suspicion. After all, this was the first time someone had offended the emperor's body. Anyone would be afraid. Princess Ningen stared unblinkingly at Eunuch Wei as he carefully poured the medicine into the emperor's mouth. She smiled faintly. You poured it better than me. Not a single drop spilled. Eunuch Wei smiled but didn't say anything. He looked scared and servile. Princess Ningen was successfully pleased. She couldn't help but laugh. That's enough. Your head is firmly on your neck. Even if you spill it, I won't kill you. If Empress Xiao wants to kill you, I will protect you. Do you know why? Eunuch Wei naturally wouldn't say that it was because the princess was kind and benevolent. Wouldn't that be hitting the horse's hoof? Eunuch Wei smiled mockingly. It's because this servant is His Majesty's steward. There are some things that His Majesty needs this servant to convey. This servant is still somewhat useful to the princess. Princess Ningen sneered. You're smart. Eunuch Wei said. That's right. Princess, shouldn't you avoid coming to Pure Flower's palace in the future? If the Empress finds out, Princess Ningen said carelessly. If she finds out, just say that I'm here to visit Imperial Brother. Imperial Brother and I have a close sibling relationship. Why would the Empress suspect me? Eunuch Wei said sincerely. That's because you came openly. The Empress won't suspect you. If you keep coming here secretly and get caught by the Empress isn't stupid. Why did Princess Ningen come here secretly? Wasn't it to drug the Emperor while avoiding everyone? There weren't many people at this time. When she thought of this, Princess Ningen realized that the palace servants weren't here tonight. Where did they all go? She asked in confusion. I sent them away because I did something bad. Eunuch Wei broke out in a cold sweat, but his expression didn't change as he said. I calculated that the princess might come at this time, so I sent them away in advance. Princess Ningen looked at Eunuch Wei and laughed. No wonder Imperial Brother thinks so highly of you. Eunuch Wei, you're truly meticulous. Eunuch Wei said with a sincere expression. It's this servant's duty to share the master's worries. If this servant wants to live, I naturally have to show the princess my abilities. Princess Ningen smiled. Good. After this matter is done, whether or not you can live will depend on how much this princess likes you. Eunuch Wei said. This servant will be willing to sacrifice my life for the princess. Princess Ningen coldly hooked the corners of her lips. All right, you go guard outside. I have something to say to Imperial Brother. Remember, don't let anyone in. Yes. All right. Princess, please give your orders. Where is my Imperial Brother's Imperial Jade Seal? Eunuch Wei froze. Princess Ningen looked at him with a faint smile. Just now you said that you would sacrifice your life for me. Now you're not willing to give me the Imperial Jade Seal? Eunuch Wei braced himself and went to the small study in the bedchamber. He opened a secret compartment, took out the Imperial Jade Seal, and handed it to Princess Ningen with both hands. Princess Ningen smiled proudly. Go out. Eunuch Wei looked back at the unconscious His Majesty, then turned and left the bedchamber. Princess Ning'an took the imperial jade seal and sat down next to the emperor. Her other hand took out a bright yellow imperial edict from her wide sleeve. In Zhao country, the emperor's imperial edict was mostly dictated by the emperor. Hanlin officials wrote the edict with a little rhetoric. Finally, it was presented to the emperor to be stamped. But there were also special cases. For example, the emperor wrote his own edict, or appointed someone to write the edict. Imperial brother, you must want to know what happened today. Why don't I tell you? There's progress in the case of Sun Ping's assassination of Imperial brother. You can't imagine who the mastermind behind Sun Ping is. It's Imperial Mother. I didn't expect it either. Imperial Mother loves you so much. How could she let someone kill you? But there are witnesses and evidence. Imperial Mother can't overturn the case this time. Who is investigating the case? It's the Minister of the Supreme Court and the Empress's sister-in-law. Imperial brother knows the temper of the Empress sister-in-law. Hearing that Imperial Mother had done such a terrible thing, the Empress sister-in-law made a prompt decision and ordered the Imperial Guards to put Imperial Mother under house arrest in Renshou Palace. The Empress sister-in-law also told me to ask Imperial brother how to deal with Imperial Mother. What? Imperial brother wants to kill Imperial Mother? That's not appropriate. Imperial Mother raised Imperial brother for a while. How could Imperial brother kill his mother? I forgot. Imperial brother has already done it. Wasn't Imperial Mother killed by Imperial brother? Thinking about it, Imperial brother won't even bat an eyelid if he kills Imperial Mother, right? Princess Ning'an's smile made people shiver. It was as if she was possessed. But in the next moment, her smile disappeared. She said coldly, Imperial Mother was killed by you all. You have the face to ask me if I have any resentment? Imperial brother, how about I kill your Imperial Mother, and then ask you if you have any resentment? The unconscious emperor's body suddenly began to tremble slightly. His hands and eyes under his eyelids seemed to be violently struggling and shaking. He was like a beast trying to break free of its shackles and cages, even if the price was his own flesh and blood. Ha! Princess Ning'an held him down with one hand. She said mockingly, killing her is too easy for her. It is better to let her become a nun and taste the pain my Imperial Mother suffered. Then let her watch as her son dies tragically in front of her. Let her watch as the country she protected falls bit by bit into the hands of others. Isn't this worse than death? The emperor's entire body trembled violently. There was no pity in Princess Ning'an's eyes. She withdrew her hand from the emperor and stood up. Taking the imperial edict, she left the bedchamber. She threw another bottle of medicine to Eunuch Wei. Give him another dose at night. Eunuch Wei looked at the imperial edict in her hand. His pupils contracted. He didn't dare ask more. He lowered his head and took it with both hands. Yes. Princess Ning'an raised her chin and said, His Majesty just woke up. This is the imperial edict he asked me to write for him. Empress Dowager Zhuang killed the emperor and rebelled. She is disgraceful and will go to Taiping Temple to become a nun. She is not allowed to return to the palace without being summoned. Eunuch Wei, come with me to Renshou Palace to issue the imperial edict now. Eunuch Wei's expression changed. Princess Ning'an looked at him coldly. Go or die. Eunuch Wei trembled as he took the imperial edict. He didn't believe that His Majesty would do anything to Empress Dowager Zhuang. The mother and son had already buried the hatchet. His Majesty would rather die than hurt the Empress Dowager. This was clearly, Princess Ning'an said coldly, Don't challenge my patience. If you don't go, you can change to someone else. Eunuch Wei's chest rolled. I can't die. I can't die. If I die and she changes to someone else to His Majesty's side, His Majesty will be even more doomed. Eunuch Wei's eyes were red. He said in a trembling voice, Go. I will go to Renshou Palace to issue the edict now. Eunuch Wei followed Princess Ning'an to Renshou Palace. Empress Xiao ordered that no one could enter Renshou Palace to visit Empress Dowager Zhuang. However, seeing the imperial edict was like seeing His Majesty. Therefore, Eunuch Wei and Princess Ning'an were not among those who were stopped. The imperial edict has arrived, Eunuch Wei sang. There was no response from Renshou Palace. Eunuch Wei sang again. The imperial edict has arrived. Only the palace people came out. Princess Ning'an looked at the closed bedroom. Mother, His Majesty has an imperial edict. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't seem to want to pay attention to people. Since ancient times, no emperor had ever given an imperial edict to the Empress Dowager. This was the first time since the beginning of time. It was reasonable for Empress Dowager Zhuang to ignore it. Eunuch Wei shouted the imperial edict again. Princess Ning'an frowned. She walked forward and pushed open the red hollow door. She saw an empty bedroom. Where was Empress Dowager Zhuang? Digression, Great Aunt. I can finally play cards all night. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964223/10868423. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 564. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Eunuch Wei secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Princess Ning'an, who was frozen in place, was not so happy. Her eyes turned cold. Eunuch Wei. I'm here. Eunuch Wei collected his emotions and immediately turned into a lackey. Princess, what orders do you have? Princess Ning'an ordered faintly. Go and find my mother. Yes. Eunuch Wei responded and searched Renshou Palace 3 times with the imperial guards. The rest of the palace people were all there, except for Empress Dowager Zhuang and Eunuch Qin. Go and ask those palace people. Princess Ning'an said. I asked, but they don't know. Eunuch Wei said. Princess Ning'an looked at him coldly. Eunuch Wei blocked the view of the imperial guards and whispered. Princess, we can't use torture in Renshou Palace. It's too conspicuous. Besides, it's the Empress's job to organize the harem. If she oversteps her authority, it'll be easy for others to use against her. Princess Ning'an took a deep breath and slowly suppressed her anger. Go and call Commander Fu. Yes. After Commander Fu came, Princess Ning'an asked him, how did you guard Renshou Palace? My mother suddenly disappeared. Didn't you notice? I don't know if something happened to my mother, and she was taken away by thieves. This. Commander Fu was at a loss. To be honest, he really didn't know. He saw Empress Dowager Zhuang taking a walk in the courtyard in the afternoon. How did she disappear after dinner? When was the last time you saw my mother? Princess Ning'an asked. Commander Fu said truthfully. It was in the afternoon around 5 o'clock. The Empress Dowager was taking a walk in the courtyard, and then she went back to her bedroom. I was only responsible for guarding and couldn't disturb her. In other words, the imperial guards could only surround Renshou Palace and couldn't watch Empress Dowager Zhuang closely. But then again, they were guarding so tightly. How did the Empress Dowager disappear? The moon was dark and the wind was strong. A figure swept onto the roof where the cold wind was whistling and nimbly jumped on the eaves and walls in the dark night. Not long after, the figure entered Jadewater Alley and landed in Gu Jiao and Xiaoheng's home. It was not early now, so Yao Shi and the children had all gone to bed. Only Gu Jiao, Xiaoheng, and the old chancellor were still sitting in the central room. Hearing the commotion in the courtyard, Gu Jiao stood up. Xiaoheng walked over before her and opened the door. Gu Qingfeng carried a person on his back as he entered, looking travel-worn. Panting heavily, he said, I'm so tired, so tired. It's too far from the palace. Xiaoheng looked in the direction of the courtyard and closed the door behind Gu Chengfeng. Gu Chengfeng carefully placed Empress Dowager Zhuang on the chair. Be careful. The old chancellor stretched out his hand to support him. Are you freezing? Empress Dowager Zhuang ignored him. He took a closer look, and his expression changed. Gu Chengfeng turned around and pulled at his collar, while looking at the unconscious Empress Dowager Zhuang. Is the Empress Dowager asleep? Could it be that she was knocked out by him? Well, he was indeed a bit fast just now. Zhuangjins, Zhuangjins, Zhuangjins. The old chancellor called a few times, and his heart tightened. Could it be that something happened? Gu Jiao bent down and approached her grandaunt. Grandaunt, we need one more. Empress Dowager Zhuang instantly woke up, opened her eyes and sat up. Where? Then she really went to play the Yi card. Everyone looked at her vigorous figure with her sleeves rolled up, ready to fight for 300 rounds, and the corners of their mouths twitched. Gu Chengfeng. Has she been looking forward to playing cards for a long time? Princess Ning'an took Eunuch Wei to Qiankuan Palace to report to her about the Imperial Edict and Rinshou Palace. Empress Xiao put down the half-read account book in her hand and said to Princess Ning'an indifferently, "If there is such a thing in the future, you better inform me first." Princess Ning'an bowed. Yes, sister-in-law. Eunuch Wei broke out in a cold sweat for Empress Xiao. Empress Xiao called Eunuch Su. You go and tell Commander Fu that no matter if Empress Dowager left by herself or was kidnapped, he must find her, both in the palace and outside the palace. Yes. Eunuch Su responded. Empress Xiao glanced at the two indifferently and said, Princess Ning'an, you go back first. Eunuch Wei, stay. Ning'an, please excuse me. Princess Ning'an bowed, took a few steps back, and brushed past Eunuch Wei. Eunuch Wei looked straight ahead and maintained the posture of bowing. Princess Ning'an also didn't have the slightest change, and left Qiankuan Palace. Empress Xiao looked at the Imperial Edict in her hand, and looked at Eunuch Wei seriously. I ask you, did His Majesty really wake up just now? Eunuch Wei said, yes. Empress Xiao suspiciously said, when His Majesty was issuing the Imperial Edict, you were always there? Eunuch Wei nodded. Yes, I served him with the brush and ink. After finishing the edict, His Majesty exhausted his vitality and fell asleep again. Empress Xiao frowned. She could be suspicious of anyone, but she could still trust Eunuch Wei. Empress Xiao sighed. I understand. Keep the Imperial Edict well, and take good care of His Majesty. The next time His Majesty wakes up, remember to send someone to inform me first. I will remember. After leaving Qiankuan Palace, Eunuch Wei headed in the direction of Pure Flower's palace. He hadn't taken a few steps when he saw a beautiful figure under a large tree. He jumped in fright. Princess! Princess Ning'an turned around with a smile that wasn't a smile. Eunuch Wei blinked and bowed. Princess, the Empress just asked. There's no need to tell me. I don't think you have the guts to betray me in front of the Empress. Yes, yes. Eunuch Wei smiled embarrassedly. Then the princess is waiting for me here. This. Princess Ning'an tossed him a porcelain bottle. Tomorrow's medicine. Give it to His Majesty at dinner time. Eunuch Wei's eyes flashed. Ah yes, this servant will definitely do as instructed. Princess Ning'an chuckled. If you can't. Eunuch Wei shook his head like a rattledrum. I don't dare, I don't dare. This servant's life is in the princess's hands. If the princess tells this servant to go east, this servant doesn't dare to go west. Princess Ning'an's lips hooked coldly. It's good that you know. All right, hurry and go serve Imperial brother. This medicine isn't foolproof. If he really wakes up, Eunuch Wei hurriedly said, this servant won't let anyone discover that His Majesty is awake. This servant will immediately notify the princess. It's good that you know. After saying this, Princess Ning'an calmly returned to Jade Cloud's hall. After confirming that she was far away, Eunuch Wei let out a long sigh of relief and quickly returned to Pure Flower's palace. It's been so long. I wonder how the swim bladder in His Majesty's mouth is doing? Did he sprinkle the medicine? Did he swallow it? Eunuch Wei arrived in front of the dragon bed and sent the palace servants away. He then pried open the emperor's mouth and slowly took out the swim bladder. The medicine inside was still there. Eunuch Wei's heart relaxed. I have to quickly take care of it. Eunuch Wei took the swim bladder and walked out. He vaguely felt like he had forgotten something, but he couldn't remember what it was. The immobile emperor. Our underpants. There's something in our underpants. There was no wall in the world that didn't have a crack. The news of Empress Dowager Zhuang colluding with Minister Xing to murder the emperor quickly spread through the capital. The civil and military officials, and the citizens of the capital never expected that the mastermind behind the scenes would be Empress Dowager Zhuang. But if one carefully thought back to the years when Empress Dowager Zhuang controlled the court and suppressed the emperor, it wasn't hard to accept the fact that she was the mastermind. The people began to voice a crusade against Empress Dowager Zhuang, but the Zhuang family actually remained silent at such a critical moment. Grand Tutor Zhuang also claimed that he was sick and didn't attend court. This caused Empress Dowager Zhuang's reputation and situation to worsen. Grandfather. Royal Prince angrily rushed to Grand Tutor Zhuang's courtyard. The guards at the door couldn't stop him even if they wanted to. Grand Tutor Zhuang was practicing calligraphy in the study. When he heard his grandson's voice, he didn't even lift his eyelids. He dipped the tip of his brush in ink and said, "Shouldn't you be on duty in the inner court at this time?" Royal Prince did go to the inner court, but he immediately returned after hearing some things. Thanks to his status, no one in the inner court dared to stop him. He came to the desk and looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang, who was concentrating on practicing calligraphy. He understood that he wasn't really sick these days. He just didn't attend court on purpose. "Grandfather, have you heard about Grandaunt?" he asked. Grand Tutor Zhuang didn't look at him. He wrote the character for Shan. "This isn't something you should worry about." Royal Prince looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang with burning eyes. "This isn't something I should worry about." "Then what about Grandfather?" "Grandfather, aren't you worried? Something so serious happened to the Empress Dowager. Shouldn't Grandfather come out to protect her reputation, and go to the Supreme Court and Ministry of Justice to find evidence of her being slandered?" Grand Tutor Zhuang's brush paused. He glanced at him. "How do you know it's slander?" Royal Prince said seriously, "The Empress Dowager wouldn't do such a thing. If she wanted His Majesty's life, she wouldn't have waited until now. Grandfather knows the Empress Dowager's methods better than I do." Grand Tutor Zhuang asked, "So what?" Royal Prince looked deeply at Grand Tutor Zhuang. "Grandfather, are you planning to stand by and watch?" Grand Tutor Zhuang didn't admit or deny it. "I'm doing this for the Zhuang family." Royal Prince sneered. "For the Zhuang family? What for the Zhuang family? Without the Empress Dowager's protection, can the Zhuang family still be the Zhuang family of the past?" Grand Tutor Zhuang slammed the brush on the table. "Then do you think the Empress Dowager is still the Empress Dowager of the past? She drew a clear line between her and the Zhuang family long ago." Royal Prince clenched his fists and said bitterly, "So Grandfather just watched and didn't save her? She's your younger sister. After her biological father sold his daughter and sent her to that man-eating palace, after she lost her only flesh and blood, after she had licked her wounds and racked her brains for the Zhuang family for so many years, her grandfather had abandoned her just like that. Grandfather only remembers the year she drew a clear line between her and the Zhuang family, but he doesn't remember the decades when the Zhuang family ate her flesh and blood." Grand Tutor Zhuang said angrily, "Enough." Royal Prince wasn't intimidated by Grand Tutor Zhuang's anger. He looked disappointedly at Grand Tutor Zhuang, whom he had respected for so many years. "Grandfather, when I was 8 years old, you sent me to Qin country as a hostage. The Empress Dowager tried her best to stop you. She said that it was enough for the Zhuang family to have her, and that there was no need to sacrifice more people. What did Grandfather tell me?" "Grandfather, you said that it was too hard for the Empress Dowager to support the Zhuang family alone. She couldn't bear everything alone. So I went. I was humiliated all those years in Qin country, but I never regretted it. But now I regret it. Grandfather, you didn't do it for the Empress Dowager or the Zhuang family. You only did it for yourself." These words were harsh, but Grand Tutor Zhuang was past the age to argue with the younger generation. He suppressed his anger and continued to write a few words. He said, You're my most outstanding grandson and the future heir of the Zhuang family. I hope you can understand your identity. Ha, identity. Royal Princeton laughed at himself and didn't say anything else to Grand Tutor Zhuang. He had already understood his grandfather's meaning. It was useless to say more. It was better to save his energy. Grand Tutor Zhuang called out to him. Where are you going? Royal Princeton turned around and said coldly, Grandfather doesn't care about the Empress Dowager. Then I can only save the Empress Dowager myself. I'm going to reverse the verdict for the Empress Dowager. Grand Tutor Zhuang threatened. If you dare to take a step out of the Zhuang family, don't come back to see me again. Royal Princeton clenched his fingers and stepped over the threshold. Grand Tutor Zhuang said in a low voice, I mean what I say. Zhuang Yuheng, your identity was given by me. Your power and status were also given by me. Without me, without the identity of the Zhuang family's legitimate grandson, you Zhuang Yuheng are nothing in the capital. Think carefully. It's not hard for you to walk out of the manor today, but it won't be so easy for you to come back in the future. Royal Princeton heard this and retracted his foot. Grand Tutor Zhuang raised his eyebrows in satisfaction. Don't go to the cabinet these few days. Stay at home. Before he could say the words rest, Royal Princeton lifted the hem of his robe and knelt on the ground. He put his hands on the ground and kowtowed heavily. With just one kowtow, his forehead turned red. Thank you, grandfather, for teaching me. Grand Tutor Zhuang was stunned. Royal Princeton's eyes turned red. He kowtowed for the second time. Thank you, grandfather, for teaching me. Blood seeped out of his forehead and his eyes were watery. Grand Tutor Zhuang's expression changed. He shouted, Zhuang Yuheng. Royal Princeton didn't stop. He kowtowed for the third time. His hot tears fell onto the cold floor. Thank you, grandfather, for your love. Yuheng is unfilial. After he finished speaking, he stood up with his forehead full of blood. He turned around with a choked voice and ran into the night without looking back. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/10866252. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 565. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Princeton regretted it after he came out for a stroll. It was so cold and the road was so dark. He should have brought some money and warm clothes before leaving home. Now he was penniless, without a carriage, and even his trusted secret guard Wu Yang had been detained by his grandfather. Wu Yang was the person who went to Chen with him. He was 7 years older than him. He was both his secret guard and his playmate. He always thought that Wu Yang was completely loyal to him after going through so many hardships. Reality gave him a cruel blow. Unknowingly, he had wandered around the capital for several hours and fell several times. There were still many people on the street. However, for the first time in his life, he felt that the bustle had nothing to do with him. He walked through the busy streets and came to a small courtyard where he used to live. However, he was stopped by the servant inside when he was about to enter. The servant said awkwardly, "Prince, I just received orders from the Zhuang family. You are not allowed to enter the house." Very good. Very good. He couldn't even stay in the courtyard. If he couldn't stay here, there were other places. Princeton went to 3 residences under the Zhuang family's name in a row. Without exception, he was rejected. Princeton couldn't even enter the restaurants and inns where he was treated as a guest. First, he didn't have money. This wasn't the main point. In the past, he didn't have money and could do whatever he wanted in the capital. There were many people fighting to pay him. The second point was the main point. Grand Tutor Zhuang ordered people to send messages to the restaurants and inns he went to. How did Grand Tutor Zhuang know his past like the back of his hand? Thank you, Wu Yang. After being rejected countless times, Prince An looked at the quiet sky and laughed until his shoulders trembled. His grandfather was right. Without the identity of the Zhuang family's grandson, he was nothing. Grand Tutor Zhuang probably wanted to use this method to force Royal Prince An back. Royal Prince An had been a sensible and obedient child since he was young. He had suffered and suffered, but he had not faced all of this alone. He had Wu Yang and many masters by his side. He had the Empress Dowager and Grand Tutor Zhuang behind him. Now he had nothing left. He couldn't even find a place to stay. It was sad and laughable. However, there was one thing that he was very thankful for, and that was that Gu Jiao had cured his eyes. He was no longer night blind. Otherwise, it would be an extravagant hope for him to even walk on the streets. The biting cold wind cut his face like a knife. At first, he could still feel the pain, but gradually he became numb. After walking for a while, even his mind was numb. He had no idea where he was. When he realized where he was, his eyebrows twitched, and he turned around to leave. Unfortunately, it was too late. A small mushroom had poked out from the door. Are you looking for someone? Royal Prince An opened his mouth. The courtyard door was pushed open by the little bean, and the candlelight in the courtyard came in. The little bean saw his face clearly and said, "You're the big brother who came to my house. We've met in the countryside. Do you still remember me, brother?" Royal Prince An was speechless. When Gu Jiao's family was still in the countryside, he went to their house. In order to meet the Empress Dowager, he went there more than once. But how long had it been? How could the little bean still remember him? Then, before Royal Prince An passed by and didn't disturb them, the little bean rushed into the courtyard and shouted, "Brother-in-law, there's a guest at home." Royal Prince An was shocked. Xiao Heng came over and said to little Jing Kong, "Do you want to sneak out to play again?" Little Jing Kong blinked guiltily. "I didn't." After saying that, he ran away. Xiao Heng looked at Royal Prince An, who was trying his best to stay calm, but was actually at a loss. He didn't know what to say. Royal Prince An also felt guilty. Although he wasn't an adult according to the customs of the Zhao kingdom, he was going to get married, and the ceremony would be brought forward. Soon he would be a real man. Men were all prideful, especially in front of love rivals and rivals. Royal Prince An made up his mind not to let Xiao Heng see that he was a stray dog. He straightened his back and said with a strong aura, "I'm just passing by. I'm not here to be a guest. I'll leave first." Xiao Heng looked at him deeply and said, "Come in and sit." Royal Prince An was stunned. Were they close? He was just passing by. Xiao Lulang actually invited him to sit in the room? "Fine, I'll sit. Who's afraid of who?" Royal Prince An nodded without changing his expression, and entered the room with Xiao Heng with a cold face. At this time, the young men were running around in the courtyard. The front and back doors of the central room were open, and there was no fire. Xiao Heng invited Royal Prince An to sit on the chair by the table, and poured a cup of hot tea for him. Royal Prince An had been wandering the streets for the whole afternoon and half the night. He was cold and thirsty. He took the teacup and slowly took a sip. His stomach instantly warmed up. Xiao Heng sat opposite him. "You haven't eaten yet, right?" "I've eaten," Royal Prince An said stubbornly. Gulp, he growled alone. Royal Prince An's face turned red. Xiao Heng called Yuya over and had her go to the kitchen to cook a bowl of noodles. Yuya looked back at Royal Prince An a few times. Royal Prince An thought, even if I'm handsome, you don't have to keep looking at me, right? Xiao Lulang, your servant girl doesn't know the rules. Grand Aunt went to Auntie Lu's house to play cards. Old Chancellor went to serve tea and his private savings. They were not at home. Yaoshi carried Gu Xiaobao to watch Grand Aunt play cards. Gu Xiaobao was excited when he saw the cards. Yaoshi didn't know why. Royal Prince An drank his tea and looked around. Jiao Jiao is not here. Xiao Heng exposed him. Gu Jiao went to the clinic. Indeed, she was not here. Royal Prince drank his tea to hide his awkwardness. Yuya, or cooked a bowl of noodles with smoked bamboo shoots and bacon. It was accompanied by a small dish of pickled vegetables. Royal Prince was the legitimate grandson of the Zhuang family. He usually ate all kinds of delicacies. However, he didn't know why, but he felt that this was the best noodles he had ever eaten. After a bowl of noodles, Royal Prince felt comfortable all over. Even his frozen toes were warm. He didn't leave a single drop of soup. He also finished all the pickled vegetables. He drank the tea and ate the noodles. If he stayed any longer, Royal Prince would feel embarrassed. Just as he was about to leave, little Jing Kong's frantic voice came from the room. This kind of voice usually only happened when Gu Jiao was out. When Gu Jiao was at home, he was very obedient. Sit for a while. I'll go take a look. Xiaoheng got up and went to the west room. Little Jing Kong couldn't find anything again. He rummaged through his little treasure chest. His toys were scattered all over the floor. What are you looking for? Xiaoheng asked. Little Jing Kong put his hands on his waist and stomped his feet. Xiaojin. My Xiaojin is missing. It's being naughty again. Xiaoheng got down and found the golden abacus under the bed. Then he pulled little Jing Kong to clean up the things on the floor. Royal Prince didn't mean to peek. It was just that he was facing the west room. It was hard not to see him. He didn't expect that an official from the imperial court would do something that only the servants would do at home. Wasn't there a maid? It's late. You should take a bath. I don't want to take a bath. Sure enough, when Gu Jiao wasn't here, he wasn't a good baby who liked to take a bath. Xiaoheng didn't want to spoil him. Xiaoheng came out to get water. He pointed to the study room and said to Royal Prince, I'll give Jing Kong a bath first. Why don't you sit in the study room? It's warm there. Forget it. It was hard to refuse such kindness. He would just sit there for a while. When Xiao Lulang finished his work, he would bid him farewell. Thinking of this, Commandery Prince entered Xiaoheng's study. Before Royal Prince came, Xiaoheng had been in the study room. Therefore, he lit a brazier and it was burning brightly. Xiaoheng went to the kitchen to get hot water. He carried it back and forth a few times. He also chopped some firewood and threw it into the stove. Royal Prince was baffled. He worked in 2 yamens during the day and had to work at home. Why didn't he hire more servants? Wasn't he good at earning money? When he was in the Imperial College, he helped people recite poems and compose essays. Soon, Royal Prince found that Xiaoheng was doing far more than that. There were a few homework books on the desk. Most of them were about little Jing Kong. The other half were about Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshan. So Xiao Lulang had to tutor his 3 brothers-in-law. Beside the homework was a thick stack of paper. The ink on the top few pages was still wet. It was obvious that they were written tonight. Royal Prince glanced at it, and was surprised to find that he didn't recognize the words on it. He didn't say that he was proficient in the 6 languages, but he knew a little. These weren't the words of the lower 3 kingdoms, or the upper 3 kingdoms. Could it be Sanskrit? Royal Prince didn't know Sanskrit, but he had seen Sanskrit Buddhist scriptures before. They didn't look like this. Amidst the screams and howls, Xiaoheng forcefully bathed the little boy. He put on his clothes and threw him into the bed. Xiaoheng took the bathwater out and cleaned up the room before returning to the study. Royal Prince looked at the paper in his hand and said embarrassedly, I just looked at it casually. It's fine. Take a look. Xiaoheng entered the room. Royal Prince pointed to the room next door. Is he like this every day? Xiaoheng nodded. He's like this when Jiao Jiao isn't here. Taking a bath was like fighting a war. Royal Prince thought about how he was annoyed by the noise next door. It was hard to imagine how Xiao Lulang survived every day. Thinking about it this way, Xiao Lulang didn't have it easy either. Alright, what are these? Royal Prince looked at the stack of papers on the table and asked. Calculation. Xiaoheng said. Calculation? Royal Prince frowned strangely. Xiaoheng looked at the paper in his hand. The one you're looking at is for calculating the ancestral rate. Royal Prince An's expression became even more strange. Isn't ancestral rate calculated using the circle cutting method? He knew about the circle cutting method, but this obviously wasn't. Xiao Heng explained. This is another method. Royal Prince was still confused. Using these strange patterns? Xiao Heng thought seriously for a moment. Strictly speaking, they should be another language. Royal Prince another language? Outside of the 6 states? Tujue language? Xiao Heng. No, the Tujue uses the Jin language. There are some differences, but it's more or less the same. The reason had to be explained from the ancestors of the Tujue and the Jin. At that time it wasn't the Jin, but the previous dynasty of the Jin. It was rumored that it was originally part of the Tujue, but later on, the tribe became independent. However, it was also said that the Tujue was part of the previous dynasty of the Jin. This saying was recorded in the history books, but history belonged to the victors. Who could say that the previous dynasty of the Jin didn't let the historians change the history books? Royal Prince was suddenly interested. He lowered his status and asked Xiao Heng for advice. If it was in the past, he definitely wouldn't be able to lower his face. Tonight. Who knew what was wrong with him tonight? Xiao Heng never hid anything. As long as someone sincerely asked for advice, he would tell them everything he knew. He was willing to teach them everything. He started with simple numbers and slowly talked about the basic formulas. Royal Prince didn't know that arithmetic could be so interesting. He seemed to have opened the door to a new world and fell into it. Moreover, he seemed to understand why the students of the Imperial College and the Hanlin Academy were willing to ask Xiao Lulang for advice. Xiao Lulang never showed off his literary talent when teaching. What he taught was real knowledge that people could understand. Until now, he finally realized that Xiao Lulang didn't rely on connections to get to where he was today. Everything he had was obtained with his own ability. What are you laughing at? Xiao Heng asked. Royal Prince smiled. When you became the new top scholar, I wasn't convinced by you. Xiao Heng looked at him. Are you convinced by me now? Royal Prince opened his mouth and nodded. You can say that. Xiao Heng put down the paper in his hand and saw through the appearance. He hit the nail on the head. You can stay overnight. 1 tael of silver per night. Royal Prince choked. Cough, talking about money hurts feelings. Xiao Heng said calmly. On credit 30% interest. There was interest? Wait, how did you know I wanted to pay on credit? Royal Prince coughed softly. In which room? Xiao Heng raised his finger. Next door. Royal Prince's face darkened. He couldn't lose face in front of Xiao Lulang. Let's make it clear first. I'm not homeless. It's just that I can't refuse your kindness. I'll reluctantly stay for 1 night. As he spoke, he went to the old chancellor's side like a proud peacock. The big rooms were all full. There was only 1 small room left. Until he crossed the threshold, he maintained the pride and nobility that a royal prince should have. After Xiao Heng left and closed the door for him, he subconsciously looked at himself in the bronze mirror. In the middle of the night, there was a series of screams that sounded like a pig being slaughtered. Ah! This beggar with messy hair, a straw stuck in his head, a face full of dirt, his clothes torn open, and his sleeves torn 3 times was not him. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896422826/1086611458. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 566. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all the novels that can't be found on the internet here. After Prince died on the spot for a full 3 seconds, Xiao Heng asked Yuya, to send a bottle of medicine. Prince An wanted to die even more. Gu Jiao treated Mo Qianxue and Hua Xiao's injuries in the medical center, and returned to Bishui Alley with a small medicine box. Hua Xiao was originally next door to Mo Qianxue, but in order to better monitor Hua Xiao, Mo Qianxue directly asked Gu Jiao to put the two of them in the same room. It was not Gu Jiao's room. Mo Qianxue didn't want others to live in Gu Jiao's room. Hua Xiao lay on the small bed. After using the bone-softening powder, she felt uncomfortable all over. She could only stare coldly at Mo Qianxue on the big bed. Mo Qianxue, you traitor! Mo Qianxue didn't speak. She sat at the head of the bed, back against the soft pillow, silently weaving the red rope she learned from little Jiangli. Hua Xiao laughed and said, "What? You dare to do but don't dare to admit it? Master shouldn't have trusted you so much. It was the lodge master who picked you up. In the end, you betrayed young master." Mo Qianxue stopped weaving the red rope in her hand and glanced at her. "Hua Xiao, what do you know?" Hua Xiao said coldly. "Then tell me, what don't I know? Or did I say something wrong?" Mo Qianxue paused. "You didn't say anything wrong." "Yes, I betrayed young master." Some things were relieved when she admitted it. She didn't want to accept the fact that she betrayed young master in the past, but when it really came to this point, there was nothing to argue about. She didn't carry out young master's order. In everyone's eyes, she betrayed young master. No one thought that she could actually jump out and testify against young master. She didn't do so. She couldn't kill Gu Jiao. She chose to escape or die, but she couldn't push young master to the death table. After all, young master was her master. Mo Qianxue said softly, "Hua Xiao, do you know? I almost died that night. In order to gain Gu Jiao's trust, young master ordered his men to be ruthless. I almost lost my life." Hua Xiao sneered. "Aren't you fine now? Young master is certain that the miracle hands hall can cure you." Mo Qianxue shook her head. "You don't understand. If she hadn't given me her blood, she wouldn't have been able to do anything." Hua Xiao said indifferently, "It's just a matter of sacrificing a few drops of blood." Hua Xiao was not a doctor. She didn't understand that not everyone's blood type could be transfused with each other. Obviously, the young master of Immortal Music House didn't know, so the young master really didn't care about her life or death. Mo Qianxue said indifferently, "I can't be bothered to talk to you." Women were generally like this. It would be fine if they had a good quarrel, but this kind of quarrel halfway through was like punching a few balls of cotton. Hua Xiao said angrily, "Humph, our lives are young master's. Even if we die for young master, so what? You're just greedy for life and afraid of death." Mo Qianxue took a deep breath, got rid of the distracting thoughts, and continued to weave the red rope in her hand. Gu Jiao knew that she was an important witness, but Gu Jiao never forced her to testify against the young master. She didn't even mention this request. If the young master knew that she had the opportunity to testify against Gu Jiao, would the young master have scruples about whether she was willing or not, and whether she was embarrassed? Definitely not. She used to be like Hua Xiao, thinking that the whole meaning of life was to contribute to the master. She was not an independent individual. She was just a vassal of the master. Until she met Gu Jiao. How could Hua Xiao understand? She didn't get what she didn't want others to get, and she didn't believe that others could get it. No matter how Hua Xiao angered Mo Qianxue, Mo Qianxue's words went in one ear and out the other, making Hua Xiao faint. Recently, there were a lot of cases in the capital, and they were reversed again and again. First, Xianlu House colluded with the imperial princess, and then it was revealed that the mastermind behind the scenes was the Empress Dowager. The emperor wanted to punish the Empress Dowager, but who knew that the Empress Dowager disappeared? Minister Xing, as the Empress Dowager's henchman, was locked up in the Supreme Court. Assistant Minister Li made a meritorious report and temporarily replaced Minister Xing's position. To officially become Minister Xing, the emperor had to personally close the case, issue an edict, and a series of other procedures. The imperial court was in turmoil, and the people were uneasy. Grand Tutor Zhuang claimed that he was ill. The memorials to the imperial court were piled up like a mountain, and the pressure of the cabinet was all piled up on Grand Secretary Yuan's shoulders. The two assistants were both Grand Tutor Zhuang's confidants. This time, when something happened, the two of them were very negative. Fortunately, Grand Secretary Yuan was able to control them. It was just that it was a bit tiring, and for the first time, Grand Secretary Yuan had the idea of appointing a junior assistant. Under normal circumstances, the cabinet didn't appoint a junior assistant. After the Grand Secretary stepped down, one of the two assistants would be chosen to become the new Grand Secretary. Only when the two assistants weren't enough would the position of junior assistant be added. The interests of the junior assistant conflicted with those of the assistants, as well as the powerful chain of interests behind the assistants, because it would often encounter strong opposition from the cabinet ministers. However, it was indeed a type of revolutionary new method, and as a result, it received the emperor's support. The monarch and his ministers competed with each other, and in the end, they reached a clever balance, agreeing to establish a junior assistant. However, the position of junior assistant had many restrictions. First, the age couldn't exceed 20. Second, one had to be a scholar of 2 lists. Third, one had to have made great contributions to the court, or at least 2 years of experience as a Hanlin official. These conditions were too harsh, to the extent where no one had ever met them. No, it wasn't that there hadn't been anyone. The Zhuang family was Zhuang Yuheng, 20 years of age, a scholar of 2 lists, second place in the new imperial examination. He had previously taken the crown prince's place as a hostage in Qin country, making great contributions. However, on one hand, he was a member of the Zhuang family. On the other hand, Grand Secretary Yuan actually had another candidate he favored. Unfortunately, the conditions weren't met. Grand Secretary Yuan sighed regretfully. The two matters that gave Empress Xiao the most headaches recently were the emperor's illness and Empress Dowager Zhuang's whereabouts. The emperor's head was injured, and the imperial doctors couldn't say when the emperor would wake up. As for Empress Dowager Zhuang's whereabouts, there was no progress either. There were checkpoints at the city gates. How high were the city walls? How high were the walls of Rinshou Palace? Empress Xiao didn't believe that Empress Dowager Zhuang had the ability to fly out of the imperial city, so Empress Dowager Zhuang was definitely still in the city. Empress Xiao ordered Commander Fu to increase the search efforts. In the past few days, Princess Ning'an either stayed at Pure Flower's palace to accompany the emperor, or went to Cunning Palace to pay respects to Empress Xiao. No one found her actions strange. One of her 2 backers in the imperial palace was gone, and the only remaining emperor was unconscious. If she didn't curry favor with Empress Xiao, how could she establish herself in the imperial palace in the future? In addition, her son Huang Fuxian didn't come out to cause trouble these days. She really was someone who understood the situation. In the afternoon, Princess Ning'an went to Empress Xiao's Cunning Palace again. Empress Xiao was checking on Qin Chuyu's homework in the warm room. Qin Chuyu was stuttering and absent-minded, giving Empress Xiao a headache. Can you focus a bit more? I want to see Imperial Father. Qin Chuyu said pitifully. Didn't I already take you to see him? Qin Chuyu was the emperor's son. How could Empress Xiao not take him to see the emperor? She also took the crown prince. The crown prince was an adult. No matter how sad he was, he could only cry secretly. Qin Chuyu, on the other hand, would cry like a ghost and howl like a wolf when he pounced on the emperor. Those who didn't know would think that his imperial father had already passed away, and he was mourning for his imperial father. Empress Xiao didn't dare to take him there anymore. A young eunuch stuck his head in at the door. Eunuch Su walked over and asked him a few questions. When he came back he reported, "Empress, Princess Ning'an is here." Empress Xiao frowned. "Take the 7th prince to the study and let him carry him properly. I'll check on him later." "Yes." Eunuch Su took Qin Chuyu's hand and led him to the study. Princess Ning'an walked in. After returning to the imperial palace to recuperate, she lived a life of luxury. It was no longer as hard as it was at the border. Princess Ning'an's face had turned pale, and her hands were much more tender. "How are your injuries?" Empress Xiao asked. She winked at the young maid. The young maid brought a stool and placed it next to Empress Xiao. Princess Ning'an looked at her right arm and said with a smile, "It's fine. Thank you for your concern. Sit down." Empress Xiao said. Princess Ning'an sat down slowly. The young maid served hot tea. Princess Ning'an took the teacup with her left hand and took a sip. She pretended to ask casually, "Sister-in-law, is there any news about my imperial mother?" Princess Ning'an and Empress Xiao used to have a good relationship. It was just that they hadn't seen each other for many years and Huang Fuxian always bullied Qin Shiyu. That was why Empress Xiao was dissatisfied with Princess Ning'an. Now Princess Ning'an had saved the emperor and treated her respectfully. Moreover, Princess Ning'an was on the emperor's side. This made Empress Xiao and Princess Ning'an less unhappy. Empress Xiao shook her head. Not yet. Princess Ning'an paused and said, "Sister-in-law, I don't know if I should say something." Empress Xiao said, "Go ahead." Princess Ning'an said in a low voice, "A few days before the incident, I saw Lord Xiao in my imperial mother's study. He came for the case of Xian Liju." Empress Xiao frowned. Princess Ning'an continued, "I don't mean to suspect Lord Xiao. It's just that my imperial mother has a good relationship with Lord Xiao. Could it be?" Empress Xiao's eyes darkened. "Could it be what? Are you suspecting that Xiao Lulang has something to do with the assassination of the emperor? Or that Xiao Lulang is harboring Empress Dowager Zhuang?" Princess Ning'an's eyes flashed with astonishment. Empress Xiao's good impression of Princess Ning'an disappeared. Xiao Lulang is the new top scholar promoted by the emperor. He is loyal to the emperor. It's impossible for him to collude with the Empress Dowager to harm the emperor. Are you kidding? His Majesty is Ahing's uncle, her uncle. Ahing will harm anyone but the emperor. Princess Ning'an lowered her eyes. "Sister-in-law, don't be agitated. I am too worried about my brother. I hope to find my imperial mother one day. After all, she cares for me. I hope to persuade her to repent and be saved." Empress Xiao said coldly. "In short, this matter has nothing to do with Xiao Lulang. I won't allow anyone to slander her by insinuations. Don't mention this again in the future. Otherwise, I won't be polite to you." Princess Ning'an looked at the tea in the teacup. Her tone was weak, but her eyes were calm. Ning'an will remember. Empress Xiao pressed her aching temples and reached out to pick up the tea on the table. "Serve the tea and send the guest off." Princess Ning'an was very sensible, and handed the tea to the little palace maid. She got up and bowed to Empress Xiao, saying, "Sister-in-law, Ning'an will go to visit my brother first. I will come to pay my respects to you tomorrow." Empress Xiao responded faintly. Princess Ning'an was about to turn around when she thought of something. She said, "By the way, sister-in-law, the servants who served Xian at the border have arrived. At the time, the army left in a hurry. They had to say goodbye to their families, so they set off a few days later. Can they continue to serve Xian?" Empress Xiao said carelessly, "You can arrange it yourself. They were just servants. She could go to the Ministry of Internal Affairs to register them. She wouldn't make things difficult for the mother and son over such a small matter." Princess Ning'an glanced at the high and mighty Empress Xiao, but the latter didn't look at her directly. Princess Ning'an looked down, bowed, and left Kuanning Palace. Unexpectedly, on her way to Pure Flowers Palace, she ran into Qin Shiyu, who had snuck out. Because he had snuck out, only Qin Shiyu was there. Princess Ning'an looked at him with narrowed eyes. Empress Xiao's arrogant attitude flashed through her mind. She coldly curled her lips and walked toward Qin Shiyu. "Little Qi, what are you doing?" "Auntie Ning'an," Qin Shiyu greeted her. Although Huang Fuxian was annoying, Ning'an had never bullied Qin Shiyu. Princess Ning'an smiled and said, "Did you sneak out?" Qin Shiyu felt wronged. "Yes, they didn't allow me to see Imperial Father." Princess Ning'an asked again, "Did anyone see you on the way?" Qin Shiyu shook his head like a rattledrum. "No, I was very careful." Princess Ning'an's smile deepened. "Are you sure?" "Yes." Qin Shiyu nodded. He was very sure. Princess Ning'an raised her hand and gently patted Qin Shiyu's head. She said gently, "Little Qi is really an amazing prince. You didn't even get discovered. It seems like no one knows that you came here." Qin Shiyu looked at her smile and for some reason he felt scared. "Aunt, why is your smile so strange?" "I'm so scared." Princess Ning'an pinched his chubby little face. "Don't be scared. I'll take you to a place." Qin Qiyu decisively refused. I'm not going. I want to see Imperial Father. Princess Ning'an said gently. We're on the way to see your Imperial Father. Qin Qiyu thought for a moment. Okay then. Princess Ning'an took Qin Qiyu's chubby little hand and expressionlessly pulled him to the pond. The pond in the Imperial Palace wasn't as deep as the Imperial Liquid Pond, but it could still drown people. Qin Qiyu became more and more confused. This isn't the way to the Imperial Palace. This is a shortcut. Princess Ning'an stopped at the edge of the pond. Do you see what's over there? What? Qin Qiyu took a step forward. Princess Ning'an stared at his back without blinking. She reached out her hand coldly and gave him a hard shove. Mother! A demonic voice suddenly sounded not far away. Qin Qiyu would recognize the owner of this voice even if he turned into ashes. It was Huang Fuxian, that annoying little cousin. Ah! Qin Qiyu's hair stood on end. The fear of being bullied flooded his heart. Almost instinctively, he used his own unique secret, the peerless running technique. Whoosh! Qin Qiyu ran away. Princess Ning'an didn't expect the little chubby in front of her to run away. She wanted to pull back her hand, but it was too late. Her push missed and her body fell forward into the cold pond with a splash. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428226/1086408446. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 567. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. The lake water in the first month was bone-chilling. Even though Princess Ning'an could swim, she was still frozen to the point of almost losing consciousness. Coupled with the heavy winter clothes, she couldn't swim at all. By the time Princess Ning'an finally managed to swim ashore, she was already half dead. The little fatty who caused her to fall into the water was long gone. Huang Fuxian didn't run away. He just sat in a wheelchair by the shore. Princess Ning'an lay in the grass, trembling and gasping for breath. After a long while, she finally had the strength to speak. Who allowed you to come out? Princess Ning'an had already grounded Huang Fuxian. Huang Fuxian said, I came out of my own accord. They couldn't stop me. Huang Fuxian did whatever he wanted and threatened to kill her. Who in the palace could stop him? The injuries on Princess Ning'an's right arm and forehead were real. The injury on her forehead was lighter and had already healed. However, her right arm had been stabbed by a knife and needed several stitches. Just now, when she flopped in the water, the wound split open again. Blood seeped into her wet sleeves and dyed a large patch red. Princess Ning'an endured the piercing pain and gritted her teeth to get up. She walked shakily to Huang Fuxian and gasped. You did it on purpose, didn't you? Huang Fuxian met her cold gaze and said fearlessly, I just saw Mother and wanted to say hello. Princess Ning'an raised her hand to slap Huang Fuxian. Unfortunately, she didn't have much strength left. Before the slap landed on Huang Fuxian's face, she fell to the ground first. When Lian came out to find Huang Fuxian and found this place, Princess Ning'an had already fainted. Princess Ning'an slept for 4 hours before waking up. The first thing she did when she opened her eyes was to teach Huang Fuxian a lesson. Princess, you should at least put on some clothes. Lian took the cloak and chased after her. Don't come in. Princess Ning'an locked Lian outside the door. She ignored the pain from her wound and came to the bed aggressively. Just as she was about to vent her anger, she found that something was wrong. Huang Fuxian's condition was not very good. To be exact, it was very bad. His entire face was as pale as paper, and his forehead was covered in a thin layer of sweat. His consciousness seemed to be drifting. Princess Ningen suddenly panicked. She changed her terrifying aura and sat down by the bed. She held Huang Fuxian's hand and touched his forehead. Xianer, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me. Huang Fuxian was tortured half to death by the pain of his broken limbs, but he did not say a word. He just silently endured the pain of his flesh being pierced by the bones. Princess Ningen choked and said, Xianer, talk to your mother. Don't sleep. I don't want you to leave mother too. Mother cannot lose you. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? As she spoke, she turned around and shouted towards the door. Imperial physician. Summon the imperial physician. Huang Fuxian finally opened his eyes and looked at her. He used most of his willpower to endure the pain and said weakly, Stop, mother. Princess Ningan's emotions stopped abruptly. What did you say? Huang Fuxian's breath was drifting. I will be filial to you for the rest of my life. I will be filial to you. I will not be angry with you. I will not make you angry. I will be your good son. Let's leave here. Go far away, to a place where no one knows, just like when I was young, when I liked you. Princess Ningen expressionlessly wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. They killed your father, killed your grandmother, and destroyed the great cause that should have belonged to you. I don't want those. Huang Fuxian grabbed her hand. The pain was eating away at him. His eyes were red. I only want you. Let's leave here, okay? No. Princess Ningen coldly withdrew her hand. She stood up and looked down at the pale Huang Fuxian. Live well. When you grow up, leave an heir for your father. Then she turned and left the room. Lian came over with the imperial physician. She looked at her mistress strangely. Princess. What's wrong? Princess Ningen didn't answer her. Instead she said, Let the imperial physician take a look. Yes. Lian brought the imperial physician into the room. Princess Ningen returned to her room. Not long after, Lian anxiously reported, Princess, the young master is not cooperating. The imperial physician is not allowed to treat him. Princess Ningen said indifferently, I see that he has so much strength. He should be fine for a while. I won't treat him. Just let him be in pain. Lian opened her mouth. Princess. Princess Ningan's eyes flickered. Send an imperial physician to guard him. Princess Ningan's expression was extremely cold. She quietly stood in front of the window and looked at the courtyard that was as still as snow. Then she looked up at the crescent moon in the sky. Suddenly, she seemed to have made a decision. She turned and walked in the direction of Pure Flower's palace. Pure Flower's palace. Eunuch Wei had just finished wiping His Majesty's body and was about to go to the small kitchen to find something to eat. Just as he walked into the garden, a figure suddenly appeared and covered his mouth. He was so shocked that he started whimpering. It's me, the other person said in a small voice. Eunuch Wei was stunned. The other person removed his hand. Eunuch Wei turned around and said in surprise, Eunuch Qin? Shoo. Eunuch Qin made a shushing gesture and pulled him behind a large tree. Eunuch Wei was puzzled. Didn't you escape? Why are you still in the palace? Eunuch Qin said. I originally planned to leave that day, but I was still worried and decided to stay. Eunuch Wei clicked his tongue and said, Aren't you afraid of being caught? Eunuch Qin said, I've worked in the palace for so many years. It's not hard to find a place to hide. Eunuch Wei glared at him. Even so, you shouldn't have come here. It's too dangerous. I'll keep an eye on the palace people for you. Hurry and leave. Don't come here again. If Eunuch Wei could still say this, it meant that he hadn't betrayed him. Eunuch Qin inwardly sighed in relief. To be honest, he had gathered a great deal of courage to come find Eunuch Wei. He was worried that if Eunuch Wei really did betray him, then his appearance would spell his death. Eunuch Qin looked around and lowered his voice. Tell me, what exactly happened in the imperial study that day? How did His Majesty become like this? Also, what's up with His Majesty's shadow dragon guards? Who's there? When Princess Ningen passed by the small garden of Pure Flower's palace, She saw a sneaky figure behind a large tree. Eunuch Wei awkwardly walked out from behind the large tree. Princess? Princess Ningen asked suspiciously. What are you doing sneaking around there? Eunuch Wei smiled and said, this one lost the key and was looking around. Did you find it? Princess Ningen asked. No. Eunuch Wei said regretfully. Princess Ningen coldly hooked her lips and walked towards Eunuch Wei. A trace of unconcealable panic flitted across Eunuch Wei's face. Princess Ningen walked closer and saw the other figure on the ground. Her eyes turned cold. Hurry and get out here. That figure timidly walked out. Princess Ningen frowned. You are. Eunuch Wei hurriedly blocked the person behind him and begged. Princess, this servant didn't do it on purpose. This servant won't dare to do it again, this servant. Princess Ningen looked at Eunuch Wei's hand grabbing the other person's wrist and realized something. She burst out laughing. So Eunuch Wei is also into food. The palace really does prohibit it, but this princess is kind-hearted and didn't see anything tonight. Eunuch Wei pulled the palace maid behind him to kneel. Many thanks, princess. Many thanks, princess. Eunuch Qin only walked out from behind the large tree after Princess Ning and went to the emperor's sleeping quarters. Everyone let out a long sigh of relief. This person can be trusted, right? Eunuch Qin was referring to the palace maid that had been pulled in at the last minute to put on a show. She can be trusted, don't worry, Eunuch Wei said. Who didn't have a few trusted subordinates? She was the one who had reported that Princess Ning and had entered Pure Flower's palace. Eunuch Wei. Princess Ning An's indifferent voice came from inside the sleeping quarters. Coming. Eunuch Wei hurriedly gestured to Eunuch Qin to leave quickly. Eunuch Qin looked at the emperor's sleeping quarters, then walked out of Pure Flower's palace with a dark expression. Princess. Eunuch Wei cheerfully walked up to Princess Ning and Princess Ningen sat on the emperor's chair and put down the finished imperial edict. She said to Eunuch Qin. All right, use the imperial jade seal to stamp it. This. Eunuch Wei stared at the imperial edict and his eyes widened. Princess. Princess Ningen smiled. What? Did I write something wrong? His Majesty's body is not well and he can't personally govern. The Empress Dowager also colluded to plot against His Majesty. The country can't go a day without a ruler. Is there anything wrong with letting the Crown Prince handle court affairs in His Majesty's place? Isn't this the rule set by the old ancestor? This is the rule set by the old ancestor, but your last sentence is against the rules. How can you go to court to supervise the country? Eunuch Wei tried his best to dissuade her. The Empress probably won't admit it so easily. Princess Ningen sneered. She'll either admit to everything written on the imperial edict or not. I bet. She'll let her son personally govern the country. Of course Empress Xiao would let the Crown Prince personally govern. Even if the price was another Princess Ningen to supervise the country. Empress Xiao probably didn't care about this widowed princess who had been acting subservient in front of her recently. If she was going to supervise the country, then so be it. If she was unhappy one day, she could have the Crown Prince remove Ning An's authority at any time. But would things really go so smoothly? Ning An wasn't a sheep, she was a wolf. It was hard to say whether it was the Crown Prince who removed Ning An's authority, or if it was Ning An who removed the Crown Prince. Back then, Empress Dowager Zhuang had used her authority to supervise the country step by step to cover the sky in court. Eunuch Wei wanted to cry. It's over, it's really over now. At night, an eagle circled above the imperial palace. It let out a cold cry and flew into the night sky. The next morning, Empress Xiao received news that she was to head to Pure Flower's palace. Eunuch Wei was going to read the imperial edict. Empress Xiao washed up and dressed neatly before heading to Pure Flower's palace with a complicated expression. Eunuch Wei was already waiting in the main hall of Pure Flower's palace. Empress Xiao walked over angrily and said in a low voice, Did His Majesty wake up again last night? Didn't this Empress tell you to immediately report to this Empress as soon as His Majesty woke up? Are you treating this Empress's words like the wind? Eunuch Wei thought, It's not that I want to treat your words like the wind, but Princess Ning An didn't give me any time to prepare. By the time I entered, she had already finished drafting the imperial edict. If you rushed over, the result would have been the same. Eunuch Wei said embarrassedly, "This was His Majesty's will. This servant can't do anything about it. Please forgive this servant, Empress." Empress Xiao glared at him coldly. "Wei Quan, you're very daring." Eunuch Wei felt bitter inside, but he didn't say anything. Not long later, the crown prince also came over in confusion. Imperial mother? Imperial son? Empress Xiao frowned. Why was the crown prince also here? Could it be that the imperial edict was related to the crown prince? Empress Xiao looked indifferently at Eunuch Wei. "This empress and the crown prince are both here. You can announce the edict." Eunuch Wei laughed dryly. "This is an important matter. His Majesty wants to announce the edict in front of the empress and all the imperial concubines. Those who could bear the title of imperial concubine were at least standard third-ranked noble concubines or above. Soon noble consort Zhuang, noble consort Xu, noble consort Yu, and all the imperial concubines arrived at Pure Flower's palace one after another. Princess Ning'an also came. There were enough people here, so everyone thought she was also called here to listen to the imperial edict and didn't pay too much attention to her. Seeing that everyone was here, Eunuch Wei unfolded the imperial edict in his hand. Everyone hear the edict. Everyone led by Empress Xiao knelt on the ground. By the will of the heavens, the emperor decrees that we have ascended the throne for 21 years. Although we have worked tirelessly day and night, we have bowed to the emperor. Today we are bedridden and our dragon body is lacking in health. The crown prince is of noble character and deeply respects us. From today onwards, the crown prince will take over the court and temporarily govern the country." Hearing this, Empress Xiao let out a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, this was an imperial edict to help the crown prince ascend the throne. The other imperial concubines were also very shocked when they heard the contents of the imperial edict. However, they weren't shocked that the crown prince would temporarily govern the country, but rather that the emperor would hand over his authority. This meant that the emperor was too ill. It was even possible that he would fall sick forever. Back then, the previous emperor had been like this. Also, Eunuch Wei cleared his throat. Everyone was shocked. Also, the crown prince is still young and has just started governing the country. We are also worried and have specially appointed him as regent. Eunuch Wei opened his mouth, a trace of extreme fear flashing through his eyes. "What do you mean?" the crown prince asked. Princess Ning'an's lips curved imperceptibly. Eunuch Wei broke out in a cold sweat. After a while, he steeled his heart and read out the words on the imperial edict. "Princess Xinyang will be regent." Princess Ning'an was struck by a bolt from the blue. Digression. It's the end of the month. Are there still monthly tickets? The newest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1086400090. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 568. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are available here. The rest of the people didn't have as big of a reaction as Princess Ning'an, but they were also very strange. His Majesty, why did he let a princess govern the country? The one who asked was noble consort Zhuang. If it was revealed today that Princess Ning'an would govern the country, she would also ask the same question. Since Empress Dowager Zhuang was the Empress Dowager, she had set a precedent for a woman to govern the country. However, Empress Dowager Zhuang was the empress, and Princess Xinyang was only a princess. Moreover, she didn't hear that His Majesty loved this princess very much. The relationship between the emperor and Princess Xinyang was indeed not very close. The marriage between Princess Xinyang and Marquis Xianping was arranged by the emperor. Most people didn't know that the emperor was actually following the will of the late emperor. So the husband and wife didn't get along well. It was inevitable that people would think that the emperor randomly matched them. Princess Xinyang probably had complaints about the emperor in her heart. Everyone thought so. So why did the emperor let her govern the country? This imperial edict isn't fake, is it? Noble consort Zhuang's mouth really didn't have a lock. She dared to say anything. Empress Xiao was the first to have a black face. She stood up and looked coldly at noble consort Zhuang. Noble consort, what do you mean? The imperial edict is clearly written in black and white, and is stamped with the imperial seal of the Zhao country. Do you not believe in the imperial seal of the Zhao country, or His Majesty's decree? The imperial edict had the part where the crown prince was the regent. If she said it was fake, wouldn't she also deny the crown prince? Empress Xiao didn't care who was the regent. In short, the crown prince had to replace His Majesty in the imperial court. Noble consort Zhuang laughed and said, "Who knows if someone stole His Majesty's imperial seal while he was unconscious and then wrote an imperial edict? Isn't that right? Eunuch Wei?" Eunuch Wei's temples suddenly jumped. Noble consort Zhuang. Oh, noble consort Zhuang, you're usually so stupid. How come you're smart today? That's right, that's the truth. But unfortunately, I can't admit it. Empress Xiao said seriously. Eunuch Wei, tell us about the whole process of His Majesty's imperial edict. Ah, this. Eunuch Wei looked at the imperial edict that was obviously still in Princess Ning'an's handwriting and braced himself to say, when His Majesty woke up, Princess Ning'an was also there. His Majesty had Princess Ning'an draft the imperial edict on his behalf, and had this old servant bring the imperial jade seal to stamp it. Noble consort Zhuang sneered. Let Princess Ning'an write the imperial edict? Why is it that every time His Majesty wakes up, Princess Ning'an is there? When we go to visit His Majesty never wakes up. This was referring to the matter of the emperor asking Princess Ning'an to draft an imperial edict to punish the Empress Dowager. Empress Xiao said coldly, "That's because you can't wake His Majesty up. Don't you know whether His Majesty wants to see you or not? Wasn't that right?" These women in the harem added together were not as important as Princess Ning'an. Noble consort Zhuang was completely choked, and had no words to refute. Princess Ning, and is this the imperial edict you wrote last night? Empress Xiao asked Eunuch Wei to pass the imperial edict to Princess Ning'an. Princess Ning'an took it and looked at it carefully. It was her handwriting without any flaws. But she would never confuse her own title with Xinyang's. So the imperial edict had been swapped. But even if she told the truth at this time, no one would believe her. Not to mention, it was not a tenable truth. Princess Ning'an held the imperial edict so tightly that the veins on her hands bulged. Eunuch Wei was frightened. Princess Ning'an wouldn't think that he did it, right? In all honesty, he hadn't touched the imperial edict after putting it in the brocade box last night. Who the hell knew how Ning'an had turned into Xinyang? Princess Ning'an took a deep breath and slowly exhaled, replying to sister-in-law yes. Empress Xiao raised her eyebrows. Princess Ning'an and Eunuch Wei are loyal to His Majesty. You should believe their words. Moreover, the crime of deceiving the emperor is punishable by beheading. Who would dare to pass a false imperial edict? Eunuch Wei thought, there are many people who pass false imperial edicts. Would you believe that there is only one in front of you? Princess Ning'an said. It seems that Princess Xinyang hasn't returned to the capital yet. If she hadn't returned to the capital, there was still room for negotiation. If they could draft an imperial edict, they could draft a second one, a third one, or even find a reason to remove her title of regent. It wasn't difficult at all. But before she could finish speaking, she heard the young eunuch at the door rush over, panting. Princess Xinyang has arrived. Princess Ning'an. Everyone stood up and looked towards the entrance of Pure Flowers Palace. Under the golden light of dawn, Princess Xinyang, dressed in a light golden muslin palace robe and a bamboo hat, slowly walked over with the support of a young maidservant. Princess Xinyang's beauty was well known throughout the world. Even though she had passed the most beautiful years of her life, She was still unbelievably beautiful. But today, she wore a bamboo hat with a muslin veil, hiding her devastatingly beautiful face. Even so, her every movement still had the bearing of a member of the imperial family that made it hard for people to look away. There were 3,000 beauties in the imperial harem, but it had to be said that no man would look at Princess Xinyang when she appeared. Princess Xinyang gracefully walked towards Empress Xiao. Just as she was about to greet her, she accidentally stepped on her skirt and fell in front of Empress Xiao, prostrating herself on the ground. Empress Xiao. There's no need for that. Why aren't you helping your master up? Eunuch Su scolded the young maidservant. The young maidservant pursed her lips and bent down to pick up Princess Xinyang. That's right, she was picking her up. Her movements were rough, and there was even a trace of disdain in her eyes. Eunuch Su. Princess Xinyang straightened her clothes and said to Empress Xiao, "Greetings to the Empress." Empress Xiao nodded. The crown prince came over and bowed to Princess Xinyang. "Aunt." Empress Xiao said to Princess Xinyang, "You came back just in time. There is an imperial edict to announce to you, but why are you wearing this?" "A few days ago, I ate something wrong and had an allergic reaction, so I have a lot of rashes. It's hard to see people." As she spoke, Princess Xinyang lifted her veil, revealing her chin covered in rashes. Empress Xiao only took one look and felt scared. She quickly waved her hand and wiped the tip of her nose with a handkerchief. "Okay, be careful when you eat. Receive the imperial edict." The person accompanying Princess Xinyang wasn't her personal maid, Yujin, but an unfamiliar maidservant. However, Empress Xiao didn't care about Princess Xinyang's affairs, so she didn't bother to ask. Eunuch Wei read the imperial edict to Princess Xinyang alone. Princess Xinyang knelt, but the young maidservant didn't. No one at the scene realized that something was wrong. By the time everyone reacted, Princess Xinyang had already received the imperial edict. Xinyang receives the imperial edict. Long live the emperor. Then she turned her head and handed her noble, jade-like hand to the young maidservant behind her. She said in a tone of voice, "Help this princess up." The young maidservant pulled her up with a look of disgust, almost ripping her arm off. Princess Xinyang's veil was mesh-like. The inside couldn't be seen from the outside, but the outside could be seen from the inside. She looked at Princess Ning'an and asked in confusion, "I am Ning'an," Princess Ning'an said to her calmly. Princess Xinyang nodded. "So it's little sister Ning'an. You've changed so much that I almost didn't recognize you." Ning'an curtsied. Princess Xinyang nodded in return. Empress Xiao said to everyone, "Okay, there's nothing else here. You can all leave." Princess Xinyang said, "I'll go in and see His Majesty." "Okay," Empress Xiao agreed. Princess Xinyang had returned from outside the city. It was reasonable for her to pay respects to the emperor. The crown prince would go to court tomorrow. Empress Xiao had too many things to take care of, so she left with the crown prince. Noble consort Zhuang and the others naturally had to leave as well. When Princess Ning'an turned to return to Bixia Hall, she was stopped by Princess Xinyang. Princess Ning'an stopped and looked at her. "Sister Xinyang, do you have any other orders?" Princess Xinyang said in a concerned tone. "You don't look well. Are you sick?" Princess Ning'an pursed her lips and didn't say anything. Eunuch Wei hurriedly explained. "Princess Xinyang, you don't know. Not long ago, His Majesty was attacked by an assassin. It was Princess Ning'an who took the blow for His Majesty. Princess Ning'an must have not recovered from her injuries." Princess Xinyang said, "I see. I didn't expect such a big thing to happen in less than a month after I left the capital." Little sister Ning'an placed righteousness before family and risked her life to protect His Majesty. It's truly admirable. If little sister Ning'an doesn't mind, why don't you come with me to see His Majesty? We sisters haven't seen each other in many years. It's a good opportunity to catch up." Eunuch Wei looked at Princess Xinyang strangely. When did Princess Xinyang become so enthusiastic? His gaze instinctively swept over Princess Xinyang's body. When his gaze landed on Princess Xinyang's slender hand that held the imperial edict, his temples twitched violently. What was going on? Princess Xinyang had a hand. Princess Ning'an hesitated. Just as she was about to refuse, Princess Xinyang grabbed her wrist through her sleeve. Little sister Ning'an, you're not going to refuse me, are you? Naturally, she couldn't refuse in public. Princess Ning'an's backers in the palace fell one after another. Of course, she couldn't refuse Princess Xinyang, who had just been appointed regent. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in line with her image of trying to please Empress Xiao. Princess Ning'an said, "How could I? Let's go in." Princess Xinyang held Princess Ning'an's hand and stepped into the bedchamber. Eunuch Wei looked at Princess Xinyang's back and rubbed his eyes hard. Was he seeing things? What woman would have hand hair? A cold wind blew, blowing up Princess Xinyang's veil. She just happened to turn her head. Eunuch Wei took a closer look and almost fell to the ground. Princess Xinyang not only had hand hair, she also had an Adam's apple. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1086193323. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 569. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. The three of them entered the bedchamber. During this time, Princess Ning'an also looked at Princess Xinyang strangely several times. Obviously, she also felt that Princess Xinyang was strange. However, Princess Ning'an and Princess Xinyang weren't close before they got married. After they got married, they were at different ends of the world. Not familiar with each other meant that there was no reason to suspect. There were many palace servants on duty in the bedchamber. Princess Xinyang called Eunuch Wei in and said, "Take them away first. I want to be alone with Imperial Brother and Princess Ning'an." "Ah yes." Eunuch Wei suppressed the fear in his heart and secretly glanced at Princess Xinyang's hand. Oh my, it really is there. He pretended to drop the token on the ground and used the time he squatted down to pick it up to look at Princess Xinyang's Adam's apple under her bamboo hat. Oh my, she really does have an Adam's apple. He hadn't carefully looked at Princess Xinyang before. Today was such a coincidence that he saw everything he shouldn't see. He suddenly felt a little sorry for Marquis Xianping. Eunuch Wei took the palace servants away. Only the sleeping emperor and the two princesses were left in the room. I'm so tired." Princess Xinyang let go of Princess Ning'an's hand and found a chair to sit down. Then she ordered arrogantly, "Xiaoyu, pour me some tea." The servant girl called Xiaoyu, ignored her and walked to the dragon bed and grabbed the emperor's wrist. "What are you doing?" Princess Ning'an grabbed the servant girl's wrist. Princess Xinyang's expression changed, and she stood up. "You dare grab her wrist? Aren't you afraid she'll send you flying with a slap?" The servant girl looked indifferently at Princess Ning'an's hand. For some reason, Princess Ning'an felt this gaze was inexplicably familiar and made her shudder. "Okay, Xiaoyu, there's nothing else for you to do here. Go make me some tea." Princess Xinyang unobtrusively separated the two people's hands and shielded the servant girl behind her. She waved her hand behind her back. The servant girl slapped the back of her hand. It was a little painful. Princess Xinyang smiled and once again took Princess Ning'an's hand wrist. She whispered, "Let's go sit over there and talk." Princess Ning'an asked, "You're not here to see Imperial Brother?" Princess Xinyang chuckled and said, "Of course. What I meant was that you go sit over there and wait for me. After I'm done with my brother, I'll go and chat with you." Princess Ning'an glanced at Princess Xinyang suspiciously. After all, She wasn't familiar with Princess Xinyang and wasn't sure if Princess Xinyang had been like this all these years. She didn't say anything and went to sit down on a chair. The young maidservant who was ordered to make tea also found a chair and sat down. Princess Ningen, didn't you want to make tea? Oh, my poor His Majesty, how did he get hurt so badly? Princess Xinyang took out her handkerchief and reached into her veil to wipe away 2 non-existent tears. She then beckoned to the young maidservant. Xiao Yuer, come and watch over His Majesty. If His Majesty wakes up, call me. I want to have a few intimate words with Sister Ningen. The young maidservant gave her a sidelong glance. She had gone overboard. The young maidservant came to the bedside. Princess Xinyang choked out. Watch over His Majesty carefully. Young maidservant. Princess Xinyang came to Princess Ning'an's side and asked sadly, Sister Ning'an, quickly tell me, what happened these past few days? Princess Ning'an looked in the direction of the dragon bed. Princess Xinyang blocked her with her broad body. Sister, tell me. I'm listening. Princess Ning'an frowned, but still told her what had happened. It was nothing more than an assassin trying to assassinate His Majesty, and His Majesty was smashed in the head and fell into a coma. It's getting late. I should go back and take care of Xian Princess Ning'an said as she stood up. I'll see you out, Princess Xinyang said. No need. Princess Ning'an declined. Princess Xinyang insisted on seeing her out. As they tugged and tugged, Princess Ning'an's skirt was stepped on by Princess Xinyang, and she fell forward. Princess Xinyang, who had been behind her, somehow flashed in front of her and caught her steadily. Are you all right, sister? I'm fine. Princess Ning'an straightened up. Thank you, sister. Princess Xinyang said apologetically. I'm sorry, I stepped on your skirt. Princess Ning'an said, It's fine. Princess Xinyang sighed. I won't cause you any more trouble. You should hurry back and take care of Xian. I'll come see you when I have time. Okay. Princess Ning'an turned to leave. She had already crossed the threshold when she turned back to look at Princess Xinyang. Her eyes filled with confusion. After confirming that Princess Ning'an was far away, only then did Princess Xinyang take off her bamboo hat, revealing an unfamiliar face covered in rashes. But how was it Xinyang? It was Gu Chengfeng. I can finally stand up straight. Gu Chengfeng stood up straight, and his skirt instantly shortened by a large chunk. He was taller than Princess Xinyang, and in order not to expose himself, he kept his legs bent. His calf Achilles tendons were sore. How is it? The young maidservant turned to ask her. The young maidservant was naturally not a young maidservant, but Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao was wearing a mask made of human skin. She couldn't make too much of an expression, or the mask would fall off. Gu Chengfeng didn't wear it because he had to speak and make a lot of expressions. If a piece of his face fell off, the scene would be quite frightening. The rashes on his face were drawn on. Have I ever made a mistake? Look at what this is. He raised his eyebrows proudly, reached out, and opened his palm to reveal a bronze key. This was the item he had stolen from Princess Ning'an earlier. There was another important reason why Eunuch Qin didn't leave the palace with Empress Dowager Zhuang. He wanted to stay behind to investigate what Empress Dowager Zhuang had told him. After Princess Ning'an returned to the palace, she went to the nunnery. At first, Empress Dowager Zhuang thought she was missing her late mother, and didn't think much of it. Later, she guessed that old concubine Jing had left something for Princess Ning'an before she died. Eunuch Qin searched until his head went bald. Finally, he found a clue. It seems to be a key, Eunuch Qin said in the letter. Along with the letter, Little Nine brought back the imperial edict for Princess Ning'an to be a regent. Thus, they came up with the plan of having Princess Xinyang be regent. Xiaoheng also thought of removing the regent position, but with Princess Ning'an's personality, she would probably make another imperial edict for herself. Thus, she still had to take the regent position. Why Princess Xinyang? First, Gu Qingfeng had seen her and heard her speak, so he didn't feel any pressure acting as her. Second, she had the golden whip bestowed by the late emperor. If anyone doubted it, Gu Qingfeng could take the whip to the throne room. Gu Qingfeng looked at the key and said, Say, what kind of key do you think this is? Old concubine Jing must have left something important for her daughter. Could it be a treasury for her daughter? Or was it a treasure trove? The kind that could rival a country's wealth? Or it could be an armory. Men and women had different hobbies. Women liked jewelry, while men liked weapons. In Gu Qingfeng's eyes, an armory was something that excited him more than gold and silver. Gu Jiao said, "Make a guess." It didn't cost any money anyway. Gu Qingfeng waved his hand. "Forget it, I won't guess. Hurry up and think of a way to make a copy. We still have to send it back to her later." Gu Jiao took out a piece of dough wrapped in cloth from her sleeve, pressed the key into it, and removed the mold. Then she handed it to him. "Okay, you can return it to her now." Gu Qingfeng put away the key. "Is His Majesty all right?" Gu Jiao put the dough back into her sleeve. His head was severely injured, and he was fed medicine again. His condition isn't too good. Can he still wake up? Gu Qingfeng asked. "I don't know," Gu Jiao said. Gu Qingfeng sighed. "Although it's not appropriate to say this, why do I feel like His Majesty deserves it?" The emperor, who couldn't wake up but could hear everything clearly, was speechless. Gu Qingfeng continued to complain. Who told him not to spoil the person he should have and not trust the person he should have? What a waste of his eyes. Gu Jiao was measuring the emperor's blood pressure when she felt the changes on the blood pressure gauge. Gu Qingfeng said with a strong aura. "If it were up to me, Ning'an's inkstone was too light. She should have stabbed him a dozen more times so that he couldn't get out of bed for 7 or 8 years. Let's see if he still remembers." The emperor's blood pressure soared. Gu Jiao turned around and looked at Gu Qingfeng sympathetically. Gu Qingfeng grabbed a fruit and took a big bite. Then he crossed his legs and looked at Gu Jiao. "Why are you looking at me?" Gu Jiao retracted her gaze and looked at the blood pressure gauge that was about to explode. She put it away without batting an eyelid. Then she came to Gu Qingfeng's side, patted his shoulder, and put the bamboo hat on his head. "After we're done with this, find a place to hide. Also," she looked down at his collar. "Here it's crooked." When Eunuch Wei entered the bedchamber with a pot of brewed tea, he saw Princess Xingyang with her head lowered and her hands constantly rubbing her chest. Eunuch Wei was petrified on the spot. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/10861595. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikagu mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 570. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Qingfeng used to have a fake voice, but today was his first time cross-dressing. It was really hard for a straight man like him. Gu Qingfeng took a long time to make the two little fellows symmetrical. Oh, not bad. He was quite satisfied. Eunuch Wei, so you're this kind of Princess Xingyang. Gu Jiao gave the emperor acupuncture to alleviate his condition, but the specific effects would have to be observed later. Let's go, Gu Jiao said to Gu Qingfeng. And Gu Qingfeng switched to Princess Xingyang's voice in a second. He stood up and bent his knees, letting his gorgeous skirt drag on the ground. Then he elegantly reached out a hand. Shall you or support this princess? Gu Jiao didn't even look at that hand and walked past him. Gu Qingfeng, who was ignored. Gu Qingfeng forcefully recovered his dignity and said, Xiao Yuer is still so anxious to open the way for this princess. All right, you can open the door. Gu Jiao looked at him with a dark expression. Can you not be so dramatic? The two left Pure Flower's palace. Gu Qingfeng said, I want to return the key to her. Wait for me outside J Cloud's hall. Gu Jiao glanced at him. Is it convenient for you to wear this? It was indeed a bit inconvenient. A woman's clothes were actually so troublesome. They were layered and bound from head to toe. He couldn't even move his legs. Gu Jiao reached out a hand. I'll go. You wait for me in the Imperial Garden. Gu Qingfeng thought about it for a while. His clothes really hindered his movements. He handed the key to her and said, Then be careful. Eunuch Qin said that there were more than 10 servants coming from the frontier fortress. They said that they used to serve Huang Fuxian. Does that little cripple need so many people to serve him? I think there's something fishy going on. Understood. Gu Jiao took the key and went to Jade Cloud's hall. Gu Jiao had never been to Baixia Hall, but it did not affect Eunuch Qin from drawing a picture of Baixia Hall for her. She easily found Princess Ning An's bedroom. Princess Ning An's key was originally placed in her purse. Along the way, she had not opened the purse, so there was no possibility of it falling out. In order not to be discovered, she had to put it back in its original place. Gu Jiao's luck was good. Princess Ning An had just put down the purse on the dressing table, and then went to the side room. Gu Jiao put on her gloves, gently opened the pouch, and put the key inside. When Princess Ning An came out of the side room, Gu Jiao had already jumped out of the window. Gu Jiao planned to meet up with Gu Qingfeng, but when she passed by a room, she heard a muffled groan from inside. There's a patient. Gu Jiao took a few steps back and looked through the narrow gap in the window lattice. She saw an empty wheelchair. She could almost guess whose room it was. There was an imperial doctor on duty in the room, but now he went to the outhouse. Gu Jiao opened the window lattice and jumped in. She came to the bed. Huang Fuxian's situation was very bad. His breathing was short, his pulse was unstable, and his forehead and body were constantly sweating. It seemed that he was enduring great pain. Does it hurt anywhere? Gu Jiao frowned strangely. She checked Huang Fuxian's upper body. Except for a few abrasions on his palms that had already healed, she did not see any injuries that could cause such intense pain. She then gently pulled Huang Fuxian's quilt. She pulled up Huang Fuxian's trousers and finally understood the problem. His bones grew out of his skin and flesh. Bones grew faster than skin and flesh. Therefore, many patients with amputations at a young age would undergo more than one bone grinding operation during their growth. This kind of operation was a kind of torture for the patient's body and mind. His situation had already caused slight inflammation. He had to undergo the bone grinding operation as soon as possible. No matter how bad it was, he had to quickly treat the wound to stop the inflammation. Gu Jiao did not bring a small medicine box, but she carried a palm-sized emergency medicine bag. She took out disinfectant and gauze, did a simple cleaning of the inflamed area, and took 2 anti-inflammatory pills to feed him. Huang Fuxian was in a daze. He felt that he had fallen into a cold embrace. He wanted to open his eyes, but he did not even have the strength to look up. Drink it. He heard someone talking to him in his ear. He was a rebellious teenager. No one could order him to do things. Gu Jiao said, If you don't drink it, I'll take off your pants. Huang Fuxian. Huang Fuxian drank the medicine aggrievedly. He was in great pain. Gu Jiao gave him a special painkiller from the Research Institute. This kind of painkiller had little side effects and could be taken by children. However, under normal circumstances, Gu Jiao still would not give it to children. But wasn't this an emergency? She could not care so much. Gu Jiao laid him down and pulled the quilt over him. At this time the imperial doctor also came back. Gu Jiao jumped out of the window. Why were you gone for so long? Did something happen? In the imperial garden, Gu Qingfeng looked at Gu Jiao, who had arrived late, and asked. Gu Jiao looked around and said, Nothing, I went to see Huang Fuxian. Gu Qingfeng breathed a sigh of relief. I thought you went to investigate the situation of those people from the frontier fortress. They are not in Baixia Hall. Gu Jiao did not feel the aura of any masters. Either they also used drugs to self-destruct their bodies to suppress their skills, or they were not there at all. Gu Qingfeng was puzzled. Not in Baixia Hall. Then where did they go? Gu Jiao said. Maybe they went to the Imperial Household Department. Didn't Eunuch Qin say that those who move into the palace from the outside must go to the Imperial Household Department to register? Ah, there is such a thing. Gu Qingfeng suddenly understood and thought of something. He smiled wickedly. Why did you go see Huang Fuxian? Do you want to capture him to threaten Ning'an? Gu Jiao gave him a speechless look. The next second, her ears twitched. She grabbed Gu Qingfeng and hid in the grass behind her. On a small path not far away, Princess Ning'an hurried past with Lian, and a few men dressed as guards. It looked like they were about to leave the palace. Gu Qingfeng asked in a low voice, I've always had a question. Why can a man outside live in the palace? Huang Fuxian is still young and is the princess's son. This is another matter, but those guards, Gu Jiao said. The masters in the palace are all eunuchs. What do you think? So they are eunuchs too? Gu Qingfeng felt that his little melon was a bit cold. Gu Jiao nodded. Should be. If they weren't eunuchs, Empress Xiao wouldn't let them in. Even though Xiao Heng was so loved by her grandaunt, who even left a room for him, he had never really stayed overnight in the palace. This was the palace's rule. Follow them, Gu Jiao said. The two of them followed at a distance. They heard Princess Ning'an get into the carriage that the emperor had bestowed upon her as she approached the palace gates. The guards on duty stopped the carriage. Princess Ning'an said, I'm going out to buy something. I've already told the empress. Lian took out a travel card given to her by Cunning Palace. The guards hurriedly let her go. Princess Xinyang didn't need to show the card when she left the palace. She didn't live in the palace in the first place. The guards were just a bit confused. Why did another princess come after they had just sent off one princess? Since they were both going out, why not go together? Princess Ning'an's carriage stopped at the entrance of a silk shop. Lian alighted from the carriage. It was unknown what Princess Ning'an said to her, but Lian entered the shop while Princess Ning'an continued her journey in the carriage. The four guards and the driver also followed. Gu Qingfeng looked over from the carriage and snorted. Sure enough, buying something is just a cover. He turned his head and found Gu Jiao deep in thought. He couldn't help but ask, Why are you in a daze? Gu Jiao said indifferently, Who's in a daze? Gu Qingfeng asked. Then why aren't you saying anything? What are you thinking about? Gu Jiao said, I'm thinking about what happened in the imperial study that day. Gu Qingfeng raised his eyebrows. Didn't Eunuch Qin say that nothing happened in the letter? Even if His Majesty saw Hua Xiao's confession, Princess Ning'an didn't hesitate to commit suicide by hitting a pillar to prove her innocence. Who would have thought that she would do it for nothing? His Majesty didn't believe her at all. After that, she knocked His Majesty unconscious. The Dragon Shadow Guard made a move, but with a wave of her hand, the Dragon Shadow Guard fell. After that, she killed Lu Ping and stabbed and smashed herself, pretending that the guard was injured. This is what Eunuch Wei saw, but perhaps there are some things that he didn't see. As Gu Jiao spoke, she made a waving motion with her hand. With this, the Dragon Shadow Guard was knocked down. Gu Qingfeng took off his bamboo hat and said, Did she use some kind of hidden weapon? But what kind of hidden weapon can make a Dragon Shadow Guard fall down in an instant? The kind with poison? Gu Jiao didn't say anything. Gu Qingfeng didn't understand. Speaking of which, where did the injured Dragon Shadow Guard go? Eunuch Wei said that he escaped, but where could he escape to? And isn't the Dragon Shadow Guard loyal and devoted? Why did he abandon His Majesty and escape? Gu Jiao muttered, Yes, why? Hey, their carriage stopped. Gu Qingfeng said. Gu Jiao lifted the curtain and said to the coachman, Stop for a moment. Their carriage stopped in an alley about 10 steps away, while Princess Ning'an's carriage stopped in front of a gambling house. When Princess Ning'an got out of the carriage, she was no longer dressed as she was in the palace. Instead, she was wearing a black cloak, and the hood of the cloak covered her head. Gu Qingfeng chuckled. Sneaking around, it's obviously not a good thing. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found online here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/10859493. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website, zhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.